Good evening, members. I welcome you all in today's webinar on the topic Succession Planning and Inheritance Law, Part 3. Two parts are already available on our YouTube channel. So, today is the session 3 of this topic. And the following topics we will discuss in today's session. We will discuss on the formation of private family trusts to ring fence the property from creditors and also succession planning. Then we will discuss the concept of living trust, international trust for wealth creation and generation, benefits in transfer pricing, and related party disclosures. Then we will have a discussion on succession of large and mid-sized size family-run businesses and succession of professional CAs in practice. And in the end, we will have a question answer session. So I request all the viewers, if you have any queries or questions, so you can write it down in the comment box. And in the end, our speaker will answer your queries. So now I would like to welcome Akhilesh ji from the team of Invex Law Office of Solicitors and Lawyers, and I request you to start your deliberations, sir.
You can. How can I present the PPT on the screen?
Uh, so there is a share icon available on the
Yeah, I
bottom.
done it already.
So you have to
It is
click on it, sir.
processing. It is processing, I think.
Yes, it is there.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. As you all know that Inmax Law Office is presenting on the inheritance and succession planning from last three session on every Saturday, and today is the third session of the continuous presentation of inheritance and succession planning in India. So earlier we have discussed on HUF concept of Indian succession, Hindu succession, and also bit of the portion for the wills. Today is the third part in a continuous for remaining things, and already CM RPG has already told us what will be the content for the today's presentation. So initially we will discuss the few glimpse from the last presentation which we have already discussed regarding the wills. And I have already told you everything about wills, most probably the basic, or you may say the fundamentals of the will, what is will, how it is to be drafted, where to be, whether it is to be registered or whether it is not to be registered. These questions we have already discussed in the last presentation. So today we will start the legal procedure regarding the wills, that after the death of a person, how and what it is to be done, what is to be considered to, effectively implementation of a will. So these are two concepts, which is one is a probate and second is administration, letter of administration. So the concept, if a particular will of a testator, that is testator means a person who is actually making the will. So if a will which is actually a registered will, so in that case we will get the probate for that will to get the authentication from the concerned court regarding the implementation of a will. But in case a, a will is having a person as an executor named in the will, in that scenario what we have to get from the court is a letter of administration which will be done in favor of an executor which is already in their will. So though both the concept, first is the probate and second is letter of administration, is entirely different. So whether we have to take the letter of administration or whether we have to take a probate of a will, it's all depend on the fact and circumstances of each case regarding whether the will is registered or not, whether the executor is named in the will or not. In case the will require transfer or disposition of a property in a particular manner, the executor will be entitled to deal with the property according with the will in terms of appropriate. So basically, what it is telling us about is all कि like executor is not the person who is actually the beneficiary of a will. Generally, we put in the will a person naming executor. He or she is only responsible for the implementation or whatever duty or right is assigned to a particular person. He is only limited. His right or duty is only limited to that concern. In case of an interstate succession, the administrator appointed by the court will play the same role. There might be the cases there in case where we don't have any executor named in the will. So in that case, we have to apply to the court for naming any person as an executor, and the court will do the rest. The administrator appointed by the court in case of there is no executor, and that in case we have already mentioned the executor in the will. In both the scenario, the role of executor are entirely same, whether we have mentioned it or whether the court has appointed. So the role of executor is always and every time is limited to the particular scope which is actually there in the will, or might be the court in their order is absolutely very clear about the role and responsibility of that person. The nominee is not an owner, but is only entitled to dispose the property in terms of a will or a succession in a law. See, generally there is a misconception in the public at large. Like generally, what we have, like we have a bank account, we have like a demat account, we have like other many things and assets in our name. So there is a concept that we had mentioned like in a nominee for that particular property, but that doesn't mean that nominee is the actual owner after the death of a person who is at present is holding the ownership. So nominee is not an owner, rather it is a person who will, after the death of a actual owner, will be entitled to implement or will be entitled to distribute and will be entitled to, administrator the things of a person who is actually the owner. But nominee and the owner are entirely two different person. Nominee is something else and the beneficial owner is something else. One may be the nominee, but he or she may not be the beneficial owner of a particular product or a particular account or a particular thing. So we have very carefully, at the time of making anyone as a nominee, we have very carefully think about the pro and cons of a person who is who will be the nominee. So this is also important. And where is the presentation for the trust?
Please go to the next slide. Yeah.
So now till now we have understood the concept regarding a succession planning through a will. Now for the today's concept we are try to understand a succession planning through a family trust. So the first and the foremost important question for having a trust is why we need a trust. As in case of every succession planning, the first question arises why we need a particular thing, why we need a will, why we need a HUF. So the same question arises here also that why we need a trust. So the answer of this question is actually depends on the requirement, need, or you may say the structure of a business, or you may say the structure of a family, whether and it is suitable for a particular person to have a trust or not. So there are various kind of trust in actually Indian parlance, if you say like a living trust, testamentary trust. So there's a broad classification of a trust that one is a living trust and second is a testamentary trust. What is a living trust? A trust created during a lifetime of a person. Testamentary trust, a trust created after the death through a pre-existing will. And if we go down to living trust for management and administration of property, this trust will manage or distribute the property of. See, whether a trust should be a living trust or a testament trust is actually depend on the requirement of a person who is making such trust. So if we understand why she need a trust, then it will be quite easy for us to determine whether he will have a living trust or a testamentary trust. Once we determine whether the trust should be a living or testament, then we can proceed further. Now, the first question arises in everyone's mind is what is a trust? So, trust is a relationship in which a person or an entity holds the legal title. So, if you in a layman language says what is a trust? So, trust is a relationship between a three person, rather between a two person. That one, then the first is a settler and another is a trustee. It's a legal relationship between a settler and a trustee to hold a property for the benefit of a beneficiary. So, a trust is basically a relationship in which a person or an entity that is a trustee hold the legal title to certain property, the trust property or trust corpus, but is bound by a fiduciary duty to exercise the legal control for the benefit of one or more individual or an organization that is the beneficiary who hold the beneficial or equitable title. So actually in a trust, one person who is a settler who is making the trust is actually bequeathing his property to the trust under the legal title of a trustee for the benefit of a beneficiary. Is actually this arrangement is actually a called trust in India, and trust is usually governed by an Indian Trust Act, if or maybe there are some local laws of a state which actually govern the trust structure in India. The entity, one or more individual, a partnership or a corporation that create trust is called a settler. So this is very clear to us that the person who create the trust is a settler. For whom it is created, it is a beneficiary, and to whom all the right or legal titleship is given for the trust property is a trustee. Now, this is, I mean, beautifully explained in this slide that who is the settler? Settler is the original owner of the asset and creator of the trust. So basically, settler is the owner of the trust who actually bequeathed his property or her property into the trust, and under the legal titleship of a trustee who will manage this trust fund for the benefit of a beneficiary who is named in the trust. There might be any n number of classification, whether it is a primary beneficiary, secondary beneficiary, ultimate beneficiary, or there should be sole beneficiary. It is purely dependent on fact and circumstances of each and every cases. So there is no such static or benchmark thing that there should be number of beneficiary or not, whether it is class of beneficiary or not. It's purely depend on each and every case. Now coming to there are another concept that is trust can be a private trust or a public trust. In a public trust, generally what happen is like a beneficiary are public at large. There is no demarcation of a beneficiary that who will benefit from this trust. But under a private trust, generally we have a class of a beneficiary or a limited beneficiary, which we already mentioned in the trust document, that these will be the only beneficiary with regards to the trust corpus or a trust fund. Now, coming further, there might be specific trust or a discretionary trust. Specific trusts are generally those trusts, it's based on the distribution base. How the property or the trust corpus will be distributed among the beneficiary determine the classification here, whether the trust is a specific trust or whether it is discretionary trust. So, under a discretionary trust, the power is always rests with the settler of the trust who holds the right in the near future how the property will be devolved. So that means in a easy, if I say in a simple language, if a person holds or I mean retain the right that how the property will be devolved in the later on, I mean later on or in near future, then the nature of considering the nature of trust, that trust will be known as a discretionary trust. If in a trust document it is very clearly mentioned like that X portion will go to the X person, Y portion will go to the Y person, and that cannot be changed. So that trust, considering the nature and the I mean the content of that trust will be called a specific trust. Now going further, whether a trust is a revocable or irrevocable, it's also depend on the drafting or you may say the organizational structure of a trust, whether a trust is a revocational trust or an irrevocable trust. If the settler has a right to ever revoke the trust after its creation, then the trust will be called a revocable trust. In case a settler, once it determines the trust or when the trust is made and he loses the right that he can ever revoke the trust by his will, then that trust will be called a irrevocable trust. The private trusts used in a succession planning are governed by Indian Trust Act. So generally, whenever we do a succession planning, we go for a private trust rather than a public trust. So the concept of a private trust in India is governed by an Indian Trust Act. The person who is actually, I mean, mentioned in the trust or settler, trustee, beneficiary. And now in today's scenario, there was one more person which is actually coming into the picture, that is a protector, to keep as a check and balance to the trustee and also to the beneficiary. This concept is actually new in India, that we nowadays is using the concept of a protector to keep a check and balance between the trustee, settler, and the beneficiary, who will not, manage the trust, but the person who is named as a protector will look after each and every, aspect of the trust, whether the trust is actually managed properly or not. It is actually delivering what it is for the reason what it is made, or other things also. The protector is basically a, you may say, a watch eye or a watchdog for a trust, to keep that trust and the trust property intact, and shall adhere to the policy, or implementation, that the trust is actually going in a right direction as the settler desired to be. The trustee hold the property for the benefit of and not on behalf of beneficiary. The trustee hold the property for the benefit of and not on behalf of the beneficiary. See, this concept is like the property of a trust, that is trust corpus or trust fund. The owner of that fund is actually the trustee, not the beneficiary. But the ultimate title of the trust fund or trust corpus will devolve to a beneficiary at a particular time or at a particular event, which is actually very clearly mentioned in the trust document. So till the time that occurrence of that particular event or particular time is not occur, till the time the trustee will be the original owner of that property. Rule against perpetuity is actually, we had very clearly, explained in our previous presentation. Revocation of a trust. Now the trust is created. Now how it will be revoked? So there are the ways. There are multiple ways which we can, come into the picture for the revocation. That by the settler at will. See, the revocation of a trust cannot be possible by the settler if the trust is an irrevocable trust. But if a trust is a revocable trust, then in case the settler can revoke the trust. Second is consent of all beneficiaries. The consent of all beneficiary can revoke any trust, whether it is any classification of a trust under any circumstances. The consent of all beneficiary can always, revoke any trust. And in terms of a trust deed, this is the most important thing, and how a trust will be revoked shall be very clearly defined or mentioned under the trust document, that is trust deed. And it is very carefully drafted while drafting any trust, that how it is to be revoked and how it is to be, manage while in case of any circumstances or any uncertainty. How a trust should be revoked shall be very lucidly and very clearly mentioned in the trust document. Now, amendment of a trust, how a trust can be amended, this, power shall also be there in the trust deed very clearly, that how a trust, any, if we need any amendment to make in the trust, how it is to be amended. So both this point shall be very carefully drafted while making any trust, that how it is to be revoked and how it is to be amended. See, it's basically a structure which is on, structure which is on this slide, that generally what happens, like there is a creation of a trust. Under that we will create an SPV, and there below that there might be a number of small companies, or you may say a layering of a company which actually hold by the trust. There might be the cases, this the reason for this planning might be different for person to person. Whether person required this arrangement or not, it depend on their need and requirement. If a person want to ring fence their property from the creditor, then this structure may be very useful for them, because if our if ultimate control of a particular property is in the hand of a trust which is actually held by a trustee, and in between there might be an SPV, and below that there might be number of companies. So in that case, there might be very difficult for any creditor or any person to directly claim any property from any person. So this structure might be very useful for ring fencing our assets from the creditors. Ananya, would you like to go ahead from here onwards?
Right. Thank you, Akhilesh, for your presentation, for such a detailed presentation. So, as you've already mentioned, right now we're discussing about trust. How can we use trust as a tool for succession planning? The trust is, Akhilesh has already explained, we have public trust and we have private trust. However, in case of family planning, a public trust is not very beneficial. Hence, most of the individuals look for a private family trust, which offers a lot of flexibility as well as a lot of control, effective control and management, which facilitates smooth transfer of wealth over various generations. It's very important, and it's further amplified given the anticipated reintroduction of inheritance tax and the possible insulation that a private trust may extend against a will where the exposure is certain. A trust structure also provides the opportunity for the promoters to preempt all possible scenarios and to document the same in an orderly manner. Now, what are we referring to in these possible scenarios? It could be a situation where, for instance, you do not want to give certain amount of funds to a particular family member, or you want to have do not you don't want to give the funds to the first generation, however, to the second generation. So, in order to avoid any potential family disputes which might arise due to these situations, using a trust is an effective tool. Akhilesh, can we go to the next slide? Right. So now, how do we first of all go about the entire process of making a trust? So the first step, which any individual has to follow, is defining trust lineage, which is basically for to decide that how will the trust continue even after the death of the original trustee. And it's important to note that a single individual cannot have the power or the entire authority to determine how the trust has to function. Hence, in that case, delegation of authority is very important. That, for instance, that if in case the trustee is not alive anymore, then taking over that person's place, or how will the money be devolved, or whether the trust will still continue? These are very important questions, and for which we have to answer in a trust deed. Second, like I already said, the delegation of authority and the power to make decision is a very important aspect which every individual while making a trust has to keep in mind. Third, that how will we determine how the distribution of the entire trust fund has to be taken into place? So, as Akhilesh has already provided us with a typical trust structure, wherein what happens is that the trust gets its income from a company, a trust company. In that case, how do we determine that how that income has to go about? Whether that income is taxable, who are the beneficiaries to that income? First steps, whether we can provide veto powers to identify specific trustees. So now, for instance, to give a very basic example, that if I have a trust tomorrow in my name, I'm the beneficiary, and the original trustee has a sudden demise. In that case, how do we determine who the next trustee will be? So, is there specific power given to the beneficiaries to determine to who's going to be the next trustee? And if not, then are there specific powers which are given to these beneficiaries to make certain decisions? Step 5, safeguarding the interest of a specific family member. For instance, a spouse. In multiple instances, which we see in our day to day life, if one of the either the husband or the wife has passes away, then in that case, for instance, in the example I'm trying to give, the husband passes away and the trust is in place. The trust should be structured in such a manner that the wife has certain benefits. By benefits, I mean that tomorrow there should not be in a situation where she is not being entitled to the income or the funds which she should be getting. She should still be able to live a very prosperous life as she would have if her husband was alive. Step 6, specific policies regarding the discipline and behavior of the next generation. Multiple times we've seen with the new generation that the recent policies are not applied. The new generation does not have the same beliefs or follow the same beliefs as that of the older generation. And however, at the same time, the older generation feels that it's very important for the new generation to strictly follow them. So, in that case, the trust deed can have certain clauses specifying certain requirements from the new generation, and only on the compliance of those rules, the new generation will be entitled to the benefits of the trust. Akhilesh, can we go to the next slide, please? So I'll just briefly explain this, as Akhilesh has already gone into this in detail. Trust comes into effect during the lifetime of settler, and it allows the settler to identify and solve issues related to management and administration during lifetime. The settler can also be a trustee. It is not necessary that settler and a trustee have to be two different individuals. It can be one individual as well. It's also important to know that in a private trust, the trust cannot be in perpetuity, which means that there has to be a certain limit to how long the trust can exist. A private trust, like for instance, Singapore offers a limit of 100 years for a life of trust. Now, as such, there is no process which is involved in settling a trust. It can be done by a trustee, and that's it. That's the only requirement for setting up a trust. However, as we've discussed in our previous presentation, that for other succession planning processes, like for instance a will, you have to undergo the whole process of a probate, which is a time-consuming process. Now, how does trust benefit an individual? Trust in certain cases provides a financial security to dependents. Dependents, we mean by to beneficiaries. That could be, for instance, the elderly parents, a spouse, a child who have certain interest in the trust assets. Uh, it's also important to know that as opposed to a will, wherein a particular property, a particular asset, a business is transferred to a certain individual, there's certain segregation of ownership and management under a trust. That also again depends upon the drafting of the trust deed. Uh, Also, there is a flexibility of common control over assets, which is you link distribution of the assets to certain milestones, such as the assets will be distributed if a child has, one of the beneficiaries has to continue higher education, or if one of the beneficiaries will be having a marriage, or for something as basic as when they reach the age of 18, so as to protect against dissipation of asset and yet provide for the financial needs of the beneficiary. Akhilesh, next slide, please. So I'll just briefly run through this. While, like I said earlier, that trust is created via trust deed. However, a trust is also governed by various other legislation apart from the Indian Trust Act. For instance, that under Regulation 11 of SEBI Takeover Regulation, there's an automatic exemption to trust under Regulation 11, which is not available under Regulation 10. Trustees and beneficiaries can be also individual partners, or they can be relatives, or they can be lineal descendants. On a dissolution of a trust, the assets are distributed to beneficiaries and legal heirs, and the transfers are to have to be disclosed as a promoter for at least 3 years. Akhilesh, next slide, please. Good. So now we've discussed the impact with respect to the. I have not given you a detailed analysis of the difference between will and trust in case of SEBI. However, when it comes to FEMA, for instance, uh, when it comes to will, any inheritance by a resident of foreign assets is permissible. Inheritance by a non-resident of Indian assets also permissible. Separate will suggested, however, we as consultants suggest that there needs to be a separate will for every different jurisdiction when an individual decides to undertake succession planning via will. Now, in case of trust, transfer to a trust capital account transaction is prohibited unless it's been permitted. Beneficial in favor. What happens in case of beneficial interest in favor of non-residents? It may require RBI approval for distribution from trust. If a trust is set up in uh, a non say BVI, British Virgin Island, Cayman Islands, Singapore, Mauritius, which are basically used primarily for the sole purpose of international tax planning and wealth creation, then in that case the resident beneficiary can be structured. The next slide, please. Now, this is one of the most important questions, topic on which we receive a lot of questions from our clients, as to what is the stamp duty which is involved in cases of will and in cases of trust. So it's very important to note that there is no stamp duty involved in the cases of wills. There is no stamp duty which has to be paid on inherited property. However, certain court fees would be payable. Now, in cases of transfer to trust, stamp duty is payable as per concessional applicable rates, which can also be planned and noted down in our trust deed. so as to avoid any additional costs on the beneficiaries. And if there's any transfer and distribution from trust, then again, as we stated earlier, stamp duty is payable as per concessional applicable rates. Keeping these factors in mind, we would like to end this presentation with respect to wills, probate, and trust, and go to our next topic for today, which is business succession planning. Akhilesh, can you start the next presentation, please? So while Akhilesh is setting up the presentation, let me just give you a brief idea of what we're trying to portray from this, go about explaining from the business succession planning presentation. In today's world, we see a lot of family firms are still dominating the entire business market, which not just in India but globally as well. And a lot of MNCs are family based, family influence, and even as a matter of fact, several small and medium-sized family enterprises are also recognized internationally because of their core family values. As a matter of fact, a very important note: Indian firms till date continue to be family run as opposed to running from a different management. As of 2019, uh, in India, family run businesses contribute 52% and 49% to the market cap of the Nifty and Sensex, whereby which highlights that their pivot, how important their role is in cultivating investor culture. And we've already seen that India has very influential families in business. For example, the Tatas, Birlas, Jindals, Reliance, Mahindra, Godrej, and Wadia. So, what exactly constitutes as a family business? Akhilesh, can we go to the next slide? The next slide, please. Next slide. Right. So, what do we mean precisely by a family business? In essence, in very simpler layman terms, a family business is a business that which is owned and managed by one or more family members. It's very pertinent to note that it has to comprise of one or more. An individual can start a family business, but for it to continue, another family member has to join in. The primary definition of family owned business are organization where two or more extended family members influence the directions of the business through exercise of kinship ties, management role, or ownership rights. So by this definition, we get three aspects of family business. One, that it has to be family run. Second, the management also has to comprise of family members who have management role. And third, that these individuals who are running the business have ownership rights in the said business. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, what does an individual look for in a family business? What are the few concepts which an individual has to keep in mind? First of all, the whole purpose of a family business is to ensure future family harmony. How that is that all the members of the family who are in the family business can work together in a very comfortable manner so as to ensure that the business continues. However, the same time that an individual's family values and ethics also get incorporated in the family business, which is very important in cases when we look at it from the corporate governance aspect. It's also necessary to know that it's not necessary that a next generation of the family will want to continue in the family business. So we also have to look at the fact that those children who want to continue, for them the business can sustain. Also, at the same time, those children who are not ready to continue the family business, how do we fulfill their profile and nature? And as an individual who started a family business, whether I have the financial security that tomorrow, if I decide to retire, or for some reason I'm unable to carry on the family business, I have the required funds to sustain myself, as well as for the surviving family members, which means that in case uh, the father who started a family business, his son passes away, leaving behind a wife and a son, then in that case, they are entitled to financial security. That should be the primary objective of family business. The next slide, please. So now, what do we have to look for in a family business? How do we define it? Do we look for either focusing toward family aspirations first, or we look towards business first? So let's discuss on what are the major points we look at when we're talking about family first. So if we have to ensure that any business decision we make have to be on the basis of equality and unity, and they should be considered to be fair. It cannot be that we promote, even if they're a family member, we promote a family member to a higher position who is not that experienced or has the professional qualification, as opposed to an outsider who has the same qualification, much better qualifications as well as experience. Differences in contribution aren't recognized, and it has to be noted all these factors contribute majorly when we're looking towards a family run business from a family perspective. Because if the business is not running well, and if all the major family business members are not in sync, then the business will not be good for the business. There'll be conflicting views, arguments constantly between the members. Now, so we suggest that it's very important that the business decisions should be based on what's best for the company, and at that point family decisions cannot be come into place. There have to be certain professional principles for compensation, promotion, and recruitment, which should be seen as fair. An employee who's not one of the members of the family owned business should not feel that I am not getting a promotion or a compensation as opposed to my peer who's a family member, because they are the family member. It's very important to also in a family business to understand what is the caliber of the child we wish to enter into the family business, whether they're capable of continuing the family business. And it's very, very important to know that irrespective in a family owned business, it's very, very important to ensure that there's fair and just treatment for all stakeholders. It cannot be biased towards family member, because that is not good for business. Then it becomes all family decisions. Akhilesh, can you go to the next slide, please? Now, when we're talking about what are the advantages of having a family business, yes, from the recent media reports, we've seen that a lot of family owned businesses, which have been there for ages altogether, have not had a successful run. However, what are the advantages which are there in a family business? First, stability. Family position typically determines who leads the business, and a result, there's usually longevity in leadership, which results in overall stability within the organization. Leaders usually stay in the position for many years until a life event such as illness, retirement, or death results in change, for which the best example which I can give you at this point would be Tata's. Commitment. Since the needs of the family are at stake, there's a greater sense of commitment and accountability. The reason for that is that if it's a general business, while individuals still be giving the 100% towards the organization, however, when there's personal stake involved, the level of commitment increases as opposed to in a normal organization. And it, as I've already stated, that this level of commitment will be very difficult to find in a non-family firm. And these kind of long-term commitment leads to various benefits such as understanding of the industry, the organization, and job, which eventually results in more effective sales and marketing or effective customer relationships. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we've discussed the 2 points now. Now the remaining two is flexibility. In a family-owned business, a family member, an individual, would go more than 100% and do tasks or jobs which are beyond their scope of purview, because they will not use this term that it's not in our job description, because a family member would be willing to uh, undertake different transactions, different roles, to ensure that it leads to success of the company. 4 point, long-term outlook. Now, in a family-owned business, a family member will not look for just ensuring that a certain percentage of goals or a certain profit margin is reached for this quarter. They will look at what will happen 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. So for them, uh, it allows them to have a better strategy or a decision-making process. The next slide. Now we've discussed obviously what are the challenge, the advantages in case of a family-owned business, and while they sound very lucrative, however, what are the challenges which are faced in a family business? First of all, there's a primary leadership clarity in a family-run business because an individual has invested a lot of time to make it run and continue the business. So there's a very huge leadership clarity, which basically I could explain a better by way of an example. So, for instance, that if the tomorrow the father starts a business, and while the son is heading a particular department, now the is part of a particular department, whether the department head can actually approach and give his views, or should he approach the son to provide his views on a particular manner, or whether they agree to it or not.
Uh, our learned speaker, Shri Vinod Jain ji, has joined us. I welcome you, sir.
Namaskar. But I'm not able to see the screen actually. Screen is not visible. I can see Ananya, I can see Mavia, but the screen which is being shared by Ananya, I'm not able to see your screen. Why?
Sir, actually, Akhilesh is sharing it. I'll just ask him to refresh his screen 1 second.
Okay, just please see. I can see Akhilesh also now. आपको सबको स्क्रीन नजर आ रही है पावर पॉइंट की?
Yes, sir.
So the screen should resume just in a minute.
हाँ हाँ नहीं करिए करिए. Please take your time. I'm sorry, I was actually on some Hyderabad presentation actually. So this was started at 2 o'clock. I just concluded at 4:30, and it took, of course, 5-10 minutes to come to you from Hyderabad to you. So अभी क्या क्या डिस्कस कर लिया हमने आ गया ये ठीक है.
So we right now we're discussing in what are the challenges which are being faced in a family business. So if you'd like to share your views on that.
Okay, you just started this family business scope.
So we've already gone through the. We're right now at the challenges stage. We've discussed till the
Okay, I think
advantages.
I'll take you through a little bit in my own manner also. Come to the first slide. You see, ultimately, the entire succession planning becomes very complex and very important when it's relating to a business, because in that this particular case, it is not the asset alone, not only the assets of the people who are actually owning the business or owning a particular asset. This become important, that which asset is going to whom, whether the wife is getting, whether the husband is getting, whether the son is getting, whether the daughter is getting. These are, of course, issues which are important, but much more important issue is that whether the business will continue. So I think, what is family business, what is the concept, what is the objective of family business? There are different business models according to which businesses are being run by different bigger corporates. That is what I think we learn. फैमिली बिजनेस के एडवांटेजेस क्या हैं, चैलेंजेस क्या हैं, सक्सेशन प्लानिंग का वहाँ क्या प्रोसेस है, and how do you actually design a family business succession strategy is the major issue which we are going to actually learn today. I am sure Ananya ji has already dealt with you the area relating to how to implement the will and the entire process of probate and other things. So I think after this is one major area which remains. Have you also handled, Ananya, the trust part?
Sir, briefly, we had already discussed the concept of a private trust and how it is to be implemented, and
Okay,
that probate and other things which we already discussed, sir.
that you already discussed. Right.
Yes, yes, sir.
So very good. In about 45 minutes, you've been able to do very significant work. I'm very happy to hear that. And of course, we can take questions on any areas at any time without any difficulty. When the people who are wanting to raise questions can keep on sending them in the chat box, or can raise them through the method in which, Mavia, have you explained to people how to send queries to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So perfectly fine. And I think there are some people who have been writing mails also. Of course, I'll request those people to send those queries to Mavia directly, so that everybody can know the rather than sending mails to me directly, because I will like everybody to see your question and then we'll answer. So, how do you design a family business succession strategy is a big question. What are the issues to be considered, taken care of designing a family business succession strategy, or different situations may how succession planning will be done? The concept of family office and family charter and family constitution, in which charter accounts can play a very important role, and different financial instruments, how a succession planning is done, exit and entry of new members in the family, how to see role of new generation, succession planning के जो भी lesson है Tata, Infosys, Raymond and other business leaders, how we have really learned, and of course succession planning, some case studies we'll look at. We go to the next slide, please. So I think ultimately we see, most of the businesses, as far as India is concerned, are family businesses. Barring exceptions of companies like L&T and maybe some certain other companies which might be, being owned by a varied group of people, varied investors, and no one particular family hold the majority stake. There, those kind of businesses are very less as far as India is concerned. By and large, they continue to be family run. And if we see the benchmark index and otherwise, ultimately, whether we see most of the companies are family run. India has seen several business families. Of course, we have been familiar with earlier families of Tatas and Birlas. Now Adanis have, of course, entered the scene. Jindals are there, Reliance, Mahindra, Godrej, and Wadias, and of course, new and new families that are now coming up in the shape of new businesses. The startup businesses also are coming in a big way. We'll understand how to really go about it. We go further, please. So I think typically a family business is one which is actually the ownership is with the family. The management is also primarily under the management control of the family. Family owned firms are organizations where two or more extended family members influence the direction of the business through the exercise of kinship ties or management role or ownership rights or a combination of all of them. So that is what a family business is. We have seen, like for example, Reliance Industries also is a family run business, because primarily being controlled by Mr. Mukesh Ambani, son of Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani, who has actually created that business. And thereafter, we see after Mr. Mukesh Ambani, possibly or while Mukesh ji is there, his son and other successors are going to actually manage the business. We have seen Mr. Anil Ambani, also another son of Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani, getting a separate line of business, and several issues erupting at the time of separation, and several issues thereafter for Mr. Anil Ambani to really run that business. I think in the light of what is happening around, we learn, because it is not that these issues happens only in larger businesses. There are much larger issues sometimes in very small businesses also, where whichever business, suppose there are two brothers or there are one son, one son, one father, even between them there could be serious issues of family business. How do we really run it, and what kind of precautions different leading business families have been taking? That is what we're going to really learn today. We go to the next slide, please. Now, what is the objective of family business? देखिए family business के लिए सबसे important चीज है family harmony. Perpetuate a business चलता रहे, रुके नहीं. Business ठीक से चलता रहे, business impact नहीं हो, in spite of family harmony has to be kept. Family values, family ethics, family culture has to be the core of the corporate governance. अब मान लिया, देखिए हमने देखा टाटा ग्रुप का, Mr. Ratan Tata actually stepped down and appointed somebody else from another family as the chairman of the company. And thereafter, after some time, he realizes that the Tata family's core ethics, core culture, core values are not being, looked after properly. Same thing which we have seen also in Infosys. We remember that Infosys also, the Infosys chairman stepped down. There are 6 promoters of Infosys, and the Infosys promoter stepped down, and ultimately hand over the ties to a person selected by them, who became the chairman, managing director of the company. But ultimately, later on, the promoters of Infosys also realized that the values, ethics, and culture which has been given by them is being given away. There were allegations that of excessive expenditure, allocation of huge money to certain quarters, and all kind of things are there, both in Tata Group as well as the Infosys Group. Such large companies also, we will not call them strictly family businesses, because there are six different people, promoters came together. And since I think we have been very closely advising the Infosys Group, we understand, they took a in principle decision, as Infosys Group, that their successors will not come into the business. That means their family members will not come to the business, was the first understanding all the six people had. So this is one big hurdle for them. They cannot bring their own son, their daughters, their children into the business, because they have agreed with the other five of them that okay, we will not bring them into business. But thereafter, when they gave the reign of the company after their retirement age, because retirement age was also decided among them, that at what age they will retire, was also among six of them it was agreed. But after retirement, they found that the person to whom they appointed as the chairman, managing director of the company, or the chairman of the company, he could not run the family, the business as per the values, ethics, and culture of the Infosys Group. We are aware that Infosys is known as one of the best corporate governance wise, one of the best companies, even much ahead of Tata Group also. So that is where we have seen them finding big issues there. Sustained growth, of course, is another thing which everybody is really looking at. Nobody wants that he has created a business after decades of hard work, and after he hand over his reins to his successors, that the business goes to a six, and business is not able to grow, rather it goes down. There is a study which has been done internationally as well as nationally, more importantly in India. According to the study, a very large number of businesses, about 70% plus of the businesses, are not sustained beyond the third generation. You see, the first generation work hard and create a business. The second generation have seen this business getting created, they nurture it. And it is the third generation, when the third generation came, either in the third generation time or in the fourth generation time, the businesses goes to parallel, because the third generation or the fourth generation start enjoying the fruit of what the hard work the you can say the first generation or the second generation has done. And the third generation is not able to carry the same values, same ethics, same culture, and at least not the same passion, because without the same passion, it is not difficult, it is rather very difficult to actually run the business with a sustained growth. Now, another area which becomes very important for families is that every family children have different ambitions. All of you are chartered accountants who are listening to this. Many of you may want your children to actually join your chartered accountancy practice or become a chartered accountant, maybe in employment. But your children think, no, no, sir, Papa, I am going to become a musician, or I'm going to become an engineer, or I'm going to become a doctor, or I'm going to start a startup. I'm not going to do this accounting business. I don't like this mathematics, or I don't like this accounting computation. मुझे तो ये पसंद ही नहीं है. So I think these kind of issues are there. So similarly in industries, businesses, there are people who have X line of business, but the children's ambitions are different. They want to actually they want to start a startup, or they want to start maybe another line of business, and they don't want to take interest in this particular business. So how do you really balance this? One has to really see profile and nature of business children to take care. Now, there are no two brothers are same. No brother and sister is same in terms of their level of knowledge, in the manner in which that level of knowledge is exercised. ना तो उनका भाग्य ना उनका कर्म, दोनों ही चीजें बहुत डिफरेंट होती हैं. तो इसलिए उनकी प्रोफाइल, उनकी नेचर, हाउ डू दे रियली एक्चुअली लुक एट थिंग्स. Some people might be very very docile, some people may be very very rude, some people may be too harsh, and all kind of things are there. And some people are very lethargic, some people want to only enjoy the life. No, there are all kind of people you will have in terms of your children. So हर एक बच्चे की प्रोफाइल और उसकी नेचर देख कर ही आपको फैसला करना है कि फैमिली बिजनेस को आपने आगे कैसे ले जाना है. For example, I have seen one of our clients, very very large client, he has two sons. and he's running, of course, a very large business. The elder son, he tried to give him responsibilities one after another. Initially for the international business, then another business, but most of the businesses, the elder son was a very is too simple a person to actually manage a business. That business shrewdness or business acumen, you call it maybe to be more precise, was actually not there. He was too simple a person. So that large business which he was managing, people were able to take him for a ride actually, and he spoiled businesses after businesses. But the younger one was a very smart person, worked very hard, and of course rather multiplied the business of his father when he was given the reins. So one has to really decide how and which person, which children will be able to actually take care of the business in future, and what role is to be given to which children, which child. फिर एक और बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात है फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी फॉर रिटायरमेंट ऑब्लिक डिसेबिलिटी. Now you know the senior person is going to retire, or he may become disabled before he retire. In both the situation, financial security and emotional securities, both the securities are actually very very necessary for the senior man to during his lifetime when he is active to actually ensure financial security for surviving family members, also for his wife, suppose he goes, for his children who are not that capable, for maybe some people who may not be differently able. So one has to actually really see the entire family and really decide how financial security for different persons. Suppose a person is the three children, out of three children one child is very well performing, other two are not that performing. तो उसी हिसाब से आदमी को फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी के लिए उनका अरेंजमेंट करना पड़ेगा. I remember a small joke, it's not a joke, but I think it only indicate, a person goes to a friend goes to another friend's house after about 25-30 years, and he started introducing him to his children one after another. First person was an engineer. He was a topper from one of the engineering universities. Another person was a medical doctor. Another person was was an advocate, and the fourth person was actually a barber. He was a barber and was running a saloon. So this friend of his said, "What is this? How can you allow a barber to be part of your family? Why did you really allow him? It is only a joke, but it is only actually making understand." So this friend who came as a visitor, he said, "Why don't you really throw him out of your house? He has not worked hard and never taken education. He has to become a barber and he is running a saloon, a small saloon." So father said, "Everything is all right, but I only want to very quietly tell you कि घर का सारा खर्च ये बार्बर ही चलाता है. The other children are not able to earn even enough to really look after the family and look after us. So how do you really throw him out?" So I think that is only just to indicate that in spite of whatever qualification you may give to people, in spite of whatever experience you may try and give them, person to person, the business acumen will be different. And some people will convert mud into gold, and some people will convert gold into mud. I have another example of a client of ours where about 5,000 people are working in that company, and this person has there are three brothers who are partners there. The elder brother who holds about 60% of the shareholding, and the other brothers are holding 10% each, and balance 20% is being held by a large number of other small shareholders. A closely held company, but about 5,000 people working, and turnover about 10,000 crores turnover of that company. Now this person, the second brother, only had two sons, and the third son, the third brother has no issues at all. So I think they tried the children, the sons of the second brother, one after another, businesses after businesses. They started giving them, "Okay, beta, you manage this project. You so much money is being accorded to you." So the money is being given one after another. Allocation is given, but whatever project you allocate them, whatever money you allocate to them, one after other, both brothers, one after another, they were actually spoiling the entire show, whatever is being given to them, because of the manner in which they manage them. So ultimately, the eldest brother had to actually invite his daughter, one of his daughters, to actually that why don't you come and start managing the business, And I think this daughter ultimately took over and on behalf of everybody else and started managing the business and successfully running the business after a while. Although they never thought that she, being a housewife, how she will really run the business, but she could get that business acumen and could really run that business very effectively and efficiently. So now you see what are the objectives. If we see on the right hand side, that it is important that the owners and managers, there has to be trust, because you may have large number of people working with you. It is important that those who work for you, they have a trust with the of the owners, and owners have trust on them and they trust the owners. Trust between owners and the board of directors is also important. Family gets an automatic opportunity of management of the business. That, of course, normally is expected. Entrenchment of management is more common in family businesses, and owner define the value of the company. Ultimately, it is owner driven value which comes to family businesses. I think this on this slide I've explained in detail the broad contour of ultimately how a family business, what are the issues which are there. And now I think we'll go one after another. We'll see it how to go about it. Go to the next slide, please, Ananya. Now you see there are two models. Family business, there are two models. One is family first model, another is business first model. In the family first model, business decisions favor equality and unity as most important. Difference in contributions are not recognized. A happy and united family is good for the business. That is what is being felt. भाई सबको बराबर में बराबर बराबर मिलेगा. कौन आदमी कितना काम करेगा या जरूरी नहीं है. कौन कितना अच्छा काम करेगा उसका भी कोई जरूरी नहीं है. तो इसका क्या रिजल्ट होता है? अच्छे से अच्छे बिजनेस बर्बाद हो जाते हैं. हमने देखा अपने प्रैक्टिकल सिनेरियो में, टॉप रनिंग बिजनेसेस, वेरी वेरी गुड ब्रांड. So everybody, one brother is working very hard, the other two are enjoying their life. Every time you see, अभी ये 15 दिन के लिए पेरिस गए हैं, अभी 15 दिन के लिए अमेरिका गए हैं, अभी एक हफ्ते की छुट्टी पर हिमालय चले गए हैं, और ऐसे कुछ they are always busy in one thing or the other than the business. So but if the family business model is family first, so difference in contribution are not recognized, सब बराबर, चाचा गधे घोड़े सब बराबर, चाचा ताऊ, बड़ा हो भाई हो छोटा भाई हो, एवरीबडी इज सेम. सो उनका बेसिक ध्येय है कि हैप्पी एंड यूनाइटेड फैमिली हमारी जुड़ी रहनी चाहिए, खुश रहने चाहिए लोग. बिजनेस तो इंसिडेंटल है, बट मोस्ट ऑफ द फैमिलीज रन बिजनेस फर्स्ट एज द मॉडल. Business decisions are based on what is best for the company. Professional principles for compensation, promotion, and recruitment are seen as fair. Caliber of child is to be considered. Principles are followed even if it leads to unequal treatment of family member. Treatment is fair and just for all stakeholders. It is not equal, but it is fair and just for all stakeholders. In that process, you see, in every family, there are large number of family members who may not be actually participating in the business day to day, but they are shareholders. The mothers are shareholders, the daughters are shareholders, the brothers are shareholders, but it is possible that only one or two brothers are actually are the main persons who are actually on the driver's seat, either because they know the technology or because they have the caliber. The others may not have that caliber. So I think an appropriate balance is being done based on contribution. Also, the distribution is done of the wealth and the income both. Anyway, this way we'll understand how it is done, because it's a very very difficult thing. Especially, every father want his children to be equal. मन में सोच होती है इक्वल करें, बट अल्टीमेटली देखिए मेरा कोई अबाउट 45 years का एक्सपीरियंस है, 42 years after qualifications. तो आई थिंक माय एक्सपीरियंस टेल मी दैट अल्टीमेटली इट इज द क्वालिटी, इट इज द कंटेंट ऑफ ए पर्सन विच डिलीवर्स वैल्यू. आप कितना भी उन्हें बराबर बराबर करेंगे, बट अल्टीमेटली जो भाग्य में लिखा है, जो देखिए भगवान श्री कृष्ण ने कहा है कर्मण्यवादी कारस्ते मां फलेषु कदाचन. हमारी जैन धर्म की थ्योरी भी है, जैसे आप कर्म करोगे वैसे फल मिलेगा. तो जिस तरह का कर्म आप कर रहे हैं, जिस तरह का कर्म आपका एक सक्सेसर कर रहा है, उसी के हिसाब से उसके पिछले जन्म के कर्मों से भी और इस जन्म के कर्मों से भी उसे फल मिलने वाला है. तो आप उसके भाग्य विधाता नहीं बन सकते हैं. तो कभी ऐसा सोच के जब आप अपने फैमिली बिजनेस को मैनेज करने का प्रयास करते हैं, भाई सबको इक्वल करेंगे, तो आपका फैमिली बिजनेस सफर कर जाता है. तो इसीलिए बहुत ध्यान से इस बात को ट्रीटमेंट को करने की जरूरत है कि नो टू ब्रदर्स कैन बी इक्वल. और ऐसा भी होता है कि एक पर्टिकुलर बिजनेस है, उसमें एक ब्रदर इंटरेस्ट लेता है, उस बिजनेस में दूसरे बेटे को किक ही नहीं मिलती है, ही इज नॉट रियली हैप्पी. सो आई थिंक इट मे बी वर्थवाइल कंसिडरिंग सम अदर बिजनेस फॉर दैट ब्रदर, rather than ensuring that both the brothers really should be in the same business. Let us go further. Next. अनन्या जी आगे चले। हाँ, देखिए फैमिली बिजनेस की वैसे अपनी बहुत सारी एडवांटेजेस हैं। ये स्टेबिलिटी देती है। फैमिली पोजीशन टिपिकली डिटरमाइन हु लीड द बिजनेस एंड एज रिजल्ट देयर इज यूजुअली लॉन्गेविटी ऑफ लीडरशिप व्हिच रिजल्ट इन ओवरऑल स्टेबिलिटी विद इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। हमने ऑलरेडी देखा, मैंने भी आपको बताया कि टाटा ग्रुप में, रतन टाटा ग्रुप में, और उधर हमने देखा Infosys group में, that stability of the family values itself impacted. And ultimately, of course, now Ratan Tata Group possibly could get a good person, good professional to manage the Tata Group. And the Tata Group has again started emerging like a winner. And Infosys also, after Mr. Narayan Murthy has come back as chairman, may not be a full-time chairman, but at least a person who actually review overall the Infosys performance is also improved dramatically. So leaders usually stay in the position for many years until a life event such as illness, retirement, or a death result in a change. Commitment, since need of the families are at stake, there is a greater sense of commitment and accountability. This level of commitment is almost impossible to generate in non-family firms. This long-term commitment lead to additional benefits such as better understanding of the industry, organization and jobs, stronger customer relationship, and more effective sales and marketing. We go to the next, please. Flexibility. देखिए, यू वोंट हियर सॉरी बट दैट इज नॉट माय जॉब डिस्क्रिप्शन इन ए फैमिली बिजनेस। परिवार का आदमी है तो सब कुछ करेगा, जरूरत होगी। फैमिली मेंबर्स आर विलिंग टू वियर सेवरल डिफरेंट हैट्स एंड टेक टेक ऑन टास्क आउटसाइड देयर फॉर्मल जॉब्स in order to ensure success of the company. Long-term outlook, non-family members think about hitting goals this quarter, while family firms think years and sometimes decades ahead. This patience and the long-term perspective allows for a good strategy and the good decision making. We'll go to the next. Challenges faced in the family business. देखिए फैमिली बिजनेस में बड़े बड़े मेजर चैलेंजेस आते हैं और उन सारे चैलेंजेस को हमें एड्रेस करना है। इसीलिए चैलेंजेस हमने आपके सामने रखे हैं, क्योंकि आपको एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट और हर एक बिजनेसमैन को जो मुझे सुन रहा है, या आपको भी एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट फर्म आल्सो हैज टू बी रियली बी वेरी क्लियर हु इज द लीडर. You know, in a family business, I remember when I was joined article training, we used to go to a particular audit, where there are too many people from the family in the business. And in the director's room, there were 8 chairs and there were 15 directors actually. And always, we really do not know what is happening there. Everybody used to decide everything. And in that process, nothing get decided. So unless leadership clarity is there, that what is the delegation of authority, what is the delegation of what is the responsibility, and who is the leader, and who has the ultimate say, and who will have the final say, or whose consensus will be necessary. I think unless things are clear, there is a big challenge to a family business, and especially the managers who are working, the managing director, the chief executive, the chief financial officer. They get such conflicting signals from different from multiple leadership in a family business that it becomes a big issue. So I think all well-run businesses of good families are controlled properly. How to do that? That also we are going to really discuss. Next challenge है family के लिए successive generations, whether they will be competent, and whether they will have commitment. देखिए दोनों चीजें जरूरी हैं, कॉम्पिटेंस भी जरूरी है और कमिटमेंट भी जरूरी है. अगर इफ वी सी दैट द नेक्स्ट सक्सेसर इज आइदर नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट और ही इज नॉट कमिटेड, आपका बिजनेस हिंदुस्तान में है, बेटा या ग्रैंडसन आपको कहता है मैं तो हिंदुस्तान में रह ही नहीं सकता, मुझे तो हिंदुस्तान पसंद ही नहीं है, मैं तो यूरोप में सेटल होऊंगा, या मैं तो अमेरिका में सेटल होऊंगा, या मैं तो सिंगापुर ही सेटल होऊंगा, आई डू नॉट लाइक being in India, or I do not like this business, or he has no commitment to the business, he may say, but actually he has no commitment, और commitment है तो competence नहीं है. तो उस हिसाब से आपको ये काफी बड़ा चैलेंज है, उसको कैसे फिल करना है एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन है. तो आपको अपने सक्सेसर्स में से ऐसा कंपिटेंट और कमिटेड आदमी ढूंढना पड़ेगा जो आपका सक्सेशन ठीक से ले सके डिफरेंट चीजों का. कोई आदमी मार्केटिंग में माहिर हो सकता है, कोई आदमी प्रोडक्शन में माहिर हो सकता है, कोई आदमी नए बिजनेसेस बिल्ड करने में माहिर हो सकता है, कोई आदमी लाइजन में माहिर हो सकता है. तो हर एक की अपनी कॉम्पिटेंस है, हर एक का अपना कमिटमेंट है, हर एक को किक मिलती है किस चीज से, उस पर निर्भर करता है किसको क्या चीज पसंद है. उस हिसाब से आपको फैसला करना होगा कि किस तरह से आपको फैमिली बिजनेस में सक्सेसर्स का डिसीजन करना है. लैक ऑफ क्लियर विजन एंड मिशन. Sometime, rather in large number of cases, the family members do not have a very clear vision, और विजन है भी तो उसका मिशन नहीं है. तो ये एक क्लियर कट विजन सामने फैमिली के होना जरूरी है, और उसके लिए मिशन भी आपको तय करना बहुत जरूरी है. सब साथ मिलकर करें, कंसेंसस से करें, चाहे लीडर्स डिसाइड करें और बाकी लोग फॉलो करें. सो विजन भी क्लियर होना जरूरी है और मिशन भी जरूरी है. जब तक लॉन्ग टर्म विजन नहीं होगा और एक पक्का मिशन नहीं होगा उसे अचीव करने के लिए, फैमिली बिजनेस विल गेट इनटू डिफिकल्टी. कैपेसिटी एंड कैपेबिलिटी बिल्डिंग इन लैक ऑफ इंटरेस्ट इन करंट लाइन ऑफ बिजनेस, ये तो मैं ऑलरेडी हैंडल कर चुका हूँ. करंट लाइन ऑफ बिजनेस में कैपेसिटी एंड कैपेबिलिटी बिल्डिंग आपको तकलीफ आ रही है कि करंट लाइन ऑफ बिजनेस से कि मैं काबिल नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल, आप चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हो, बेटा कह रहे मेरे तो सीए नहीं कर सकता पापा, मेरा तो मैथमेटिक्स ठीक नहीं है, या मेरे को अकाउंटिंग एंट्रीज में मजा नहीं आता है. तो क्या करेंगे आप एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट? क्या करेंगे आप? देखिए, एक तो रास्ता में एक बात बताता हूँ आपको, मेरा एक्सपीरियंस कहता है, खासतौर पर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भाइयों के लिए, दिस इज ट्रू विद even with all businessmen. Unless you think that you are in the best job or in the best profession or in the best industry, unless you are actually, yourself convinced that the business or profession you are in is the best profession or best business, it is impossible for you to convince your successors. अगर आप कोई रोज घर में वाइफ से या फिर बच्चों से कहते हैं यार क्या बड़ा बेकार बिजनेस है, मर गए, 24 घंटे वहां लगे रहते हैं, कुछ होता नहीं है, या फिर क्या यार क्लाइंट्स तो पैसे देते ही नहीं है, और क्या हम लास्ट डेट आफ्टर लास्ट डेट वी कीप ऑन वर्किंग वेरी हार्ड, वी आर नॉट एबल टू अर्न दैट मच मनी. यू नो, once you give them that kind of a flair of your own profession or your business, your children are bound to lose their interest in your business. And of course, it is important not only for you to take interest, but also it is important that you actually what are the potentials available in your business or profession are also seen by your future successors appropriately over a period of time before they become eligible for becoming a successor. And of course, you look after their qualification and their you can say capacity building accordingly, their training program accordingly. Some people may have interest in working abroad, or they may have interest in art, sports or culture. हमारे client हैं, they are in automotive manufacturing, but the son is interested only in Punjabi singing. He says, Papa, मेरे को तो पंजाबी में गाने गाने हैं. He is a very good singer, no doubt about it. But the father is worried what will happen to his business, where he already have about 3,000 crores turnover, and business is actually becoming larger and larger, bigger and bigger. So father is trying to regularly convince the son, okay, beta, आप गाने गाते रहो पर business भी संभालो. But there is a conflict which is happening because of his keen interest in the culture, keen interest in that art of singing, assuming that past success will guarantee their future success. एक ये बहुत बड़ा रिस्क है. आदमी सोचता है हम पहले सक्सेसफुल थे तो आगे भी गारंटी है फ्यूचर सक्सेस की. ये हमने सबने एक फिल्म देखी है, मेरी जंग, जिसने बताया है ये जिंदगी हर कदम पर नई जंग है. तो सिमिलरली प्रोफेशन है, सिमिलरली बिजनेस है. एंड आई थिंक unless you regularly upgrade your technology, your skill, and change with the changing time, past success may give you laurels but will not give you future success, will not guarantee future success. So one has to really keep on changing the strategy, keep on changing the rules of the game, keeps on changing the armaments, what you're going to really use it, and the strategies and the direction in which the business has to go, and need to actually close down the lines of businesses which are no more good and keep on adding new lines of businesses or new products, or innovate new products, or innovate new processes, or innovate new materials, anything for that matter, to keep on growing. The legacy value attributed to the business does not translate into market value or an advantage. देखिए, ये जो लीगेसी वैल्यू है, इसकी अपनी वैल्यू है. मान लीजिए टाटा ग्रुप के नाम की बड़ी वैल्यू है, अडानी ग्रुप के नाम की बड़ी वैल्यू है, रिलायंस की, इन्फोसिस की नाम की बड़ी वैल्यू है, बट दैट अलोन डज नॉट वर्क. अब हम देख रहे हैं ये एमडीएच है, एमडीएच के मसाले आते हैं. वो बाबा जी थे, अभी थोड़े दिन पहले तक थे, द चेयरमैन ऑफ द कंपनी. ही वाज देयर, but he is not there. An immediate thing which we have seen after his going, suddenly the prices of MDH masalas have been increased by 30% to 50% in a matter of few months. And I don't know when, but the day is not far away that you can't really take too much advantage of your brand. Ultimately, brand has a limited value. You can take 5%, 10%, 15% price advantage because the quality which you have been consistently giving, only because of that, and continue the brand. So the pricing has to be done properly, the branding has to be done properly. Most importantly, the quality and efficacy and effectiveness has to be really keep on improving every single time when you deliver. So unless you every single delivery is better than the last, there cannot be a sustained growth. So that is what is the challenge before a family business, and one has to really see how to manage that challenge. That is why I said from second generation to third generation it becomes more challenging, because when the first generation actually create a business, the second generation is very young and they see of their father or mother struggling creating that business, and that is how they learn during that struggle as to what it involves, and they have seen that business growing from a very small to a very big business, or at least a much larger business, and they value that growth and they really understand that potential of growth, and their commitment is there. But unless you are able to actually inculcate the same kind of commitment, the and adequate competence in your third generation or the fourth generation or the fifth generation, ये देखिए बहुत मेहनत से करना पड़ता है काम, और अगर पैसा बहुत आराम से मिलने लगता है थर्ड जनरेशन को या फोर्थ जनरेशन को, तो सबसे पहले तो उनके लिए पैसे की वैल्यू खत्म हो जाती है, और जिस इंसान के लिए पैसे की वैल्यू खत्म हो जाती है, उस इंसान के लिए ग्रोथ सस्टेन करना बहुत मुश्किल काम है. वेरी 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 डिफिकल्ट. We go to the next slide. Ananya ji, can we go to the next slide? Yes. Now, एक और बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मुद्दा है देखिए बिजनेस में. तो अखिलेश जी, आप तो देख ही रहे हैं हम लोग दिन रात करते हैं लोगों के साथ, कितना डिफिकल्ट है. सबसे डिफिकल्ट है इमोशनल कंसर्न वर्सेस बिजनेस परफॉर्मेंस. आपको अपना बेटा सबसे प्यारा लग रहा है, बिकॉज हर इंसान को अपना बेटा या अपनी बेटी उससे बढ़िया कोई नहीं लगता. इमोशंस आर लाइक दिस. तो ये इमोशन कंसर्न वर्सेस बिजनेस परफॉर्मेंस. पता लगा वो बिजनेस परफॉर्मेंस उसकी बड़ी पुअर है, बड़े भाई का बेटा या छोटे भाई का बेटा बहुत अच्छा है, पर इमोशनल चाहता है कि भाई वो चाहता है कि हाँ भाई दुर्योधन ही बने. ठीक है ना, युधिष्ठिर को ना बनाओ या अर्जुन का ना बनाओ, दुर्योधन बन जाए किसी तरह, चाहे उसके लिए कुछ भी करना पड़े. तो ये जो कंसर्न है, फैमिली के इश्यूज हैं, दे आर इन एवरी सिंगल फैमिली in one form or the other. But how you are able to actually balance them, balance this conflict, that is where the success is. Conflict cannot be completely done away with. All conflicts have to be converted into opportunities actually, by creating adequate competition among the family members. Kaise, I think I'm going to deal with that. How I'm going to deal as we go further. I'm going to actually share experiences how we are going to do this. Family needs versus business demand. फैमिली की नीड डिफरेंट है, बिजनेस की डिमांड डिफरेंट है, उसको बैलेंस करना जरूरी है. डिजायर फॉर स्टेबिलिटी एक तरफ, जहां पर चेंज की रिक्वायरमेंट है. आपने देखा कोरस के वो आते थे, क्या बोलते हैं उनसे, कार्बन पेपर. कोरस एज ए फैमिली खत्म हो गई, एज ए कंपनी खत्म हो गई. और कोडक की फिल्म आती थी, आपको पता है फिल्म आती थी जिससे लोग तस्वीरें खींचते थे, वो पूरी कंपनी खत्म हो गई. दे हैव लॉस्ट देयर एंटायर इवन रेलेवेंस दे हैव लॉस्ट. So change is always constant. So change तो करना ही है. हाँ, आपकी कितनी भी डिजायर होगी स्टेबिलिटी को, आपको स्टेबल रहना है सब्जेक्ट टू दैट चेंज. और जो आदमी चाहता है जो कल जो हो रहा था वही आज होता रहे. हमें बैंक ऑडिट मिलते थे भाई, ब्रांच ऑडिट मिलते थे, स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट मिलता था, सीएजी का काम मिलता था, वो एज इट इज मिलता रहे, ऐसा होगा नहीं. समय के साथ बदलेगा, सब कुछ बदलेगा. वे टू चेंज विद आवरसेल्व्स. इतनी राइजिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी आगे आई हैं. We have created so much opportunities in this country, and professionals have tremendous opportunities. Similarly, businesses have very new businesses are coming. We have seen people like Zomato, people like Paytm, people like BharatPay. The kind of new opportunities are coming. If you really want sustained growth, you have to definitely change with the changing time. हर आदमी चाहता है स्टेबिलिटी, पर चेंज तो जरूरी है, चेंज तो करना ही पड़ेगा. एक चौथा पॉइंट जो है जस्टिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट है. ये कहना आसान है पर करना बहुत मुश्किल है. How do you do justice? Even between your son and daughter, even between the two sons. Every son is going to tell you कि वो आप तो दूसरे बेटे को ज्यादा प्यार करते हो, मैं कितनी मेहनत करता हूं आप पर उसको ज्यादा प्यार करते हो, मेरे को तो हर बार आप ये बताते रहते हो मैंने ये गलत किया, मैंने ये गलत किया, और हमेशा उसकी तारीफ करते रहते हो. तो ये जस्टिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो है ना, और मान लिया कजन ब्रदर है या कजन सिस्टर है या डिस्टेंट कजन है, तो और भी डिफिकल्ट है टू जस्टिफाई दैट जस्टिस. आपके इमोशन के लिए भी डिफिकल्ट है और कंसर्न पार्टिसिपेंट्स के लिए भी डिफिकल्ट है. बट इट इज अल्टीमेटली सस्टेन ग्रोथ फैमिली बिजनेस की जब ही होगी जब आप कंपिटेंस को पूरा मौका देंगे और जस्टिस करेंगे. और उस जस्टिस से ही कई बार ऐसा लगता है कि जिस आदमी के खिलाफ जस्टिस हो रहा है, सही मायने में उसी के साथ जस्टिस हो रहा होता है. अगर उसकी कंपिटेंस बहुत पुअर है और फैमिली के सारे रिसोर्सेज को उसने खत्म कर देना है, तो उसके साथ जस्टिस करने का यही तरीका है कि एक कंपिटेंट आदमी को इंचार्ज बनाया जाए और इसके फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट को और इसके फाइनेंशियल ग्रोथ को appropriately secure किया जाए. Let him become only a financial investor and let performance investor could be performing person could be somebody else. And how the rules of the game will ensure that his interests are taken care and he gets regular dividend or regular interest or regular financial safety, all that is what you can really manage. अब एक वर्क फैमिली कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है. कुछ लोग फैमिली ओरिएंटेड होते हैं. सबसे पहले फैमिली में कुछ होगा, काम धाम छोड़ के घर चले जाते हैं, बिना बात के छुट्टी ले लेते हैं. बात होती है तो छुट्टी लेते ही हैं. छोटी बात हुई तो 15 दिन के लिए गायब हो गए, यार ये तो मेरे यहाँ तो ये प्रॉब्लम हो गई. देयर आर सम पीपल हु आर वर्क अल्कोहलिक. तो दोनों तरीके के लोगों को आपको बैलेंस करना पड़ेगा अपनी फैमिली में. फिर रोल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, किसको क्या रोल देना है और क्या वो रोल उसे सूट करता है नहीं करता है. उसे मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर बनाना है, उसे परचेज डायरेक्टर बनाना है, या उसे खाली पीआर दे सकते हैं, परचेज सेल में लगा ही नहीं सकते हैं, या पीआर तो बिल्कुल नहीं दे सकते क्योंकि जो मिलता है उससे लड़ लेता है. तो ये सारी चीजें समझनी जरूरी है हमें. तो अप्रोप्रिएटली हमें डिसाइड करना है किसको क्या रोल देना है, और ये बहुत आसान नहीं है. इसमें आपको डेफिनेटली ये जरूरी है कि आपको somebody should actually keep on regularly advising you. डिसीजन फिर भी आपने करना है. डिसीजन आपने करना है पीपल हु आर योर कंसल्टेंट्स, हु आर योर एडवाइजर्स, who knows your family closely or who try and know every family members can say attributes after detailed study over a period of time. Associate good consultants with your family who actually help you in running family businesses directly or indirectly. Interact with different family members, try and learn their attributes and guide as a complete independent professional to you as to what kind of a role conflict, how do you manage a role conflict, how to manage justice. मैंने देखा है चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स के पास नॉर्मली एवरी बिजनेसमैन कम एंड आस्क इसका क्या करना चाहिए, ये इस बिजनेस में कैसे करें, ये किसको अथॉरिटी दें, किसको नहीं करें, अभी नया प्रोजेक्ट लगा रहे हैं, ये 3 भाइयों में से किसको इसका मौका दें, क्या लगता है आपको. तो आई थिंक समटाइम्स योर व्यू will have a good bearing on the entrepreneur, but don't do anything free, because when you do things free, I am not saying you can really bill for this, but ultimately directly indirectly you will recover fee. But when you do things free, don't do them casually. At least you have to actually ensure, because your advice will decide success or failure of the person ultimately. So इसीलिए बहुत ध्यान से हमें चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भाइयों को ये जो फैमिली सक्सेशन है उसको साथ में हैंड होल्ड करके आगे ले जाना है. एंड वी हैव टू एक्चुअली प्ले वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल. देखिए इसमें लीगल काम कुछ नहीं है, सारा मैनेजमेंट का खेल है. लीगल काम तो देखिए अनन्या जी ने और अखिलेश जी ने आपको अच्छे से समझाया कि लीगल इश्यूज क्या है, सक्सेशन क्या इशू है, विल से क्या होगा. लेकिन जो इमोशनल पार्ट है, जो बिजनेस पार्ट है, वो तो बिजनेसमैन ही समझेगा अल्टीमेटली. और अपने फैमिली के डिफरेंट डिफरेंट मेंबर्स की क्या कैपेबिलिटीज हैं, क्या उनके पता लगा कि एक को किसी को ड्रग्स का प्रॉब्लम है, किसी को शराब का प्रॉब्लम है, ओवर अल्कोहलिक है, देयर कुड बी एनीथिंग. So all that has to be really kept in mind while taking a decision. We go to the next, please. Identity conflict, succession conflict, इनको समझाने की जरूरत नहीं. I think we all understand. These are the prevalent conflict in the family businesses. Financial interest भी conflict हो जाता है लोगों का आपस में. ये सारे सबको बैलेंस करना है आपने. अब एक चौथा जो आइटम है वो बड़ा डिफिकल्ट है. Unethical practices to divert funds by family factions. देखिए जब एक से ज्यादा फैमिली फैक्शन होते हैं और अगर रूल्स ऑफ द गेम ठीक से आपने डिसाइड नहीं किए, तो हर आदमी परिवार में, हर आदमी बिजनेस में से पैसा निकाल लेता है चुपके से. और जहां पर ऑफ द बुक्स कमाई काफी होती है, वहां तो ये प्रॉब्लम और भी ज्यादा है. whenever you are actually working with proper corporate governance, सारी कमाई एक नंबर में है, वहां तो फिर भी आप रूल्स ऑफ द गेम, भाई कौन आदमी की कितनी ड्राइंग होगी, किसको क्या परक्विजिट मिलेंगे, यू कैन स्टिल टेक a decision. But still people can get into unethical practices, and there could be internal frauds, there could be internal unethical practices in spite of whatever rules of the game. So don't have a blind eye. आंख बंद करके अपने सक्सेसर्स के साथ, अपने फैमिली मेंबर्स के साथ डील मत करिए. लव करिए, लेकिन साथ में कंट्रोल भी रखिए. और हैव मॉनिटर, कीप ऑन मॉनिटरिंग व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन, व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. क्योंकि आपने बहुत मुश्किल से इस पौधे को सजाया संवारा है, पेड़ की शक्ल में लाया है. यू ऑब्वियसली डू नॉट वांट कि हर आदमी उसकी एक एक डाली नोच के ले जाए. तो अनएथिकल प्रैक्टिसेस जो डाइवर्ट फंड्स बाय फैमिली फैक्शंस, कई बार फंड्स डाइवर्ट करते हैं, कई बार एक्स्ट्रावेजेंट खर्चे करते हैं, कई बार रेकलेस खर्चे करते हैं. लैक ऑफ टाइम एंड डिवोशन, काफी प्रॉब्लम फैमिली में है कि टाइम ही नहीं देते, डिवोशन नहीं है. इश्यूज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू मनी कंट्रीब्यूशन. आपको बिजनेस ग्रो करना है, आपको पैसा लगाना है, हर आदमी की इच्छा है कि दूसरा लगा दे, मेरे को ना लगाना पड़े, क्योंकि मिलता तो सबको बराबर बराबर ही है. तो ये आप कैसे डिसाइड करेंगे भाई जो जितना पैसा लगाएगा, अगर उसको उसका ब्याज नहीं देंगे, ब्याज के अलावा उसके ऊपर उसे इंसेंटिव भी देंगे, तभी लोगों को एक मौका मिलेगा, हाँ भाई चलो इसमें तो ब्याज मिलता है कंपनी से, या फिर ग्रोथ भी मिलती है उसके बेसिस पर, कल को शेयर्स का प्राइस बढ़ता है तो उसकी बेनिफिट मिलती है. तो देन डेफिनेटली एवरी फैमिली मेंबर विल लाइक टू एक्चुअली कंट्रीब्यूट मोर एंड मोर. एंड व्हेन दे कंट्रीब्यूट मोर एंड मोर, देन आई थिंक फैमिली बिजनेसेस ग्रोज एंड प्रॉस्पर. अल्टीमेटली बड़े बड़े बिजनेसेस खत्म हो जाते हैं व्हेन देयर आर फंड्स आर डाइवर्टेड फ्रॉम फैमिली बिजनेस. गो टू द नेक्स्ट. Ananya ji, can we go to the next slide? Ananya, can you change the slide, please?
So just 1 second, we're facing slight technical issues. Just 1 second.
हाँ हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम, हो जाता है, अटक जाती है कई बार.
Sir, we are unable to share the slide. It's somehow not accepting it.
आप ऐसे करो, माविया को भेजो.
I'll just send it to her, sir.
हाँ, उसको फोन करो, शी विल शेयर. माविया, आर यू एबल टू लिसन टू अस? मैडम, विल यू कम ऑन द स्क्रीन प्लीज? Mavia ji, I think we're not able to share the screen. Can we send to this to you and you can help us?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, अभी भेज रहे हैं आपको अनन्या जी, जस्ट शेयरिंग विद यू. वो राज चावला जी की मेल आईडी पर ही भेजो प्लीज.
जी.
राज चावला एफसीए पर. आज चावला साहब के दर्शन नहीं हुए.
एक्चुअली सर गुजरात गए हैं.
मद्रास गए?
गुजरात.
गुजरात गए.
He's in Gujarat, yes.
हाँ, नहीं, उनकी जिम्मेवारी बढ़ गई ना, काउंसिल मेंबर बन गए तो नेचुरली हैज टू ट्रैवल. I think participants kindly bear with us. The presentation is being sent to the organizers.
So we've sent the email.
ईमेल आ गया, देखो बेटा माविया.
Yes, sir. I'm checking it. Ma'am, on which ID you have sent?
I've sent it on NICI updates.
Oh, okay. Just a minute.
Sir, in the meanwhile, we can answer few queries which is already sent to us or actually posted
आई
in
है
the
क्वेरीज कुछ? मैं एक मिनट
sir.
खोल लेता हूँ क्वेरी फिर. एक मेरे पास शायद मेल से आई थी, एक मिनट में खोल लेता हूँ मेल.
Ma'am, I didn't receive it. Can you send it on rajchavlaca@gmail.com?
I'll just do that. Thank you.
So one question is in the comment box. Husband and wife can execute joint will.
जॉइंट विल,
Yeah.
ये क्वेश्चन है या ये
Yes, sir.
सजेशन है?
Sir, question.
अच्छा, दिस इज द क्वेश्चन.
Can husband and wife execute joint will?
देखिए, हम तो सजेस्ट नहीं करेंगे जॉइंट विल, बिकॉज डेथ तो जॉइंट होती नहीं कभी. देयर आर नो पीपल हु कैन डाई टुगेदर इवन इफ दे प्लान. तो जॉइंट डेथ, जॉइंट विल तो हम बिल्कुल आपको सजेस्ट नहीं करेंगे. देयर कैन बी मे बी अ सिंगल डॉक्यूमेंट बीइंग साइंड बाय बोथ ऑफ देम is possible, because suppose you want to give consent of the wife to the husband's will, and consent of the husband to the wife's will, but both the documents we feel should be separate, because when you do a joint will, not only this will not actually work properly, secondly, it may still have an issue whether it was done with the independent mind. The independence of the same may become a big question mark. Actually, there could be several issues. And how will you define? Because the wife cannot decide the husband's assets where it will go. Husbands cannot decide where the wife's assets will go. There's no purpose which is going to happen. Akhilesh, you want to actually add something to it?
Yes, sir. The concern is it's absolutely right that we will not recommend any person to execute a joint will, because it will be very difficult for both the person in case there is minor change of mind, because any amendment to that joint will require both the person at the same time to again make the changes for any amendment. But there might be the case there is a property which is actually the question may be having the base might be there the case there is a property which is in the name of a two person, that is husband and wife. So I suppose that this question has been arise from there. If they actually want to transfer that property to their children, so that may be the case. They are asking that whether they have to execute a joint will or not. But we will recommend that both the person, that is husband and wife, make their independent and different will, mentioning their share, that a wife may hold 50% or wife may hold X percent and husband may hold X percent. So they both execute different wills, mentioning their share in the property, and make two different will rather to execute a single joint will. But per se, there is no bar in the law to execute a joint will. We can execute a joint will, but it is not recommended.
अनन्या, स्लाइड नंबर बताइए ना, कौन सी पर थे आप?
सर ये इसी स्लाइड पे थे सर हम.
इस पर नहीं थे बेटा, इसे पीछे देखिए क्या है.
सर
कोई नहीं, इसे बड़ा कर लेते हैं और इसे पहले वाली स्लाइड जरा दिखाइए तो कंटिन्यूटी आ जाएगी.
So slide
Go
number
to
was
the go to
12.
the slide number 12, please.
Yeah, 12 was a slide.
the challenges and succession planning.
हाँ, एक बार देखेंगे फिर वापस यहीं आ जाएंगे. चाहे पीछे नहीं जा रहा. You also have some technical issue, it appears, huh?
Yes, sir. Actually, I am moving the slides, but it got hanged.
Okay, चलिए फिर जो स्लाइड सामने इसी को डिस्कस करते हैं. अभी डिस्कस नहीं हुई है. So I think we will see, I think, how this technology we are able to actually really address. 2 मिनट माविया जी उसे टाइम दे दीजिए. कई बार ज्यादा बटन दबाने से भी वो अटक जाता है.
Okay, sir.
हाँ, थोड़ा सा just give it some rest. In the meanwhile we'll discuss. इसको आप स्लाइड शो कर दीजिए ताकि ये बड़ा हो जाए.
Sir, I already done the slideshow.
अच्छा, स्लाइड शो आपने कर दिया है.
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, कोई बात नहीं. फिर स्लाइड शो के तौर पर नहीं नजर आ रहा तो चलो, अच्छा है, कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है. नो प्रॉब्लम. So succession planning is a formalized process to successfully transfer company leadership from the current management to successor management. It is designed to ensure ongoing viability of the company. अभी देखिए इसमें बहुत सारे प्रोसेसेस हैं जो हमें ध्यान से देखने हैं। क्या प्रोसेसेस हैं, क्या एक्टिविटीज हैं, क्या डिजायर्ड आउटकम है, हमें सारी चीजों को देखना है। देखिए सबसे सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोसेस है एक तो मैनेजमेंट सक्सेशन का, और दूसरा इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोसेस है ओनरशिप सक्सेशन का। दोनों अलग अलग हैं। आज की डेट में एक्स मैनेजमेंट है, कल वाई मैनेजमेंट होगा। आज की डेट में ए ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल इज ओनर, टुमारो इट विल बी slightly amended, later it will be further amended, and like that it will keep on getting amended. Now how do you really do the planning? you know सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है इसमें फैमिली कम्युनिकेशन नीड टू बी क्लियर. You need to have a family charter. Family charter is like, a constitution document which decides the rule of the game of the family, whether family first or whether business first, and how various things are really going to take place is a family charter. Especially, it becomes important. Larger the family, more important to have a family charter. And longer the family values you really want to sustain, most important is to have a good family charter. Family business rules are the rules which nobody will be really allowed to actually overcome. The family will decide business rules. Those business rules, the ethical rules, the operating rules cannot be changed. Family ethics and family culture is also decided. Family business meetings are important, and family council meetings are important. In terms of the in terms of the family charter, there is a need of a regular family business meetings, and then of course family council meeting. I think we are going to really deal with them as we move further as to what is the role of family charter, what is the role of family business meetings, what is the role of family council meeting. We are going to really deal. Now you see मैनेजमेंट सक्सेशन में सबसे पहला एक्टिविटी है, ये पांचों चीजें आपको डिसाइड करनी है. कैसे आपकी फैमिली चलनी है, चार्टर डिसाइड करिए, बिजनेस रूल्स डिसाइड करिए, एथिक्स एंड कल्चर डिसाइड करिए, बिजनेस मीटिंग्स रेगुलर का एक प्रबंध करिए, और फैमिली काउंसिल विच इज अ लार्जर बॉडी कंसिस्टिंग ऑफ ऑल फैमिली मेंबर्स, उसकी मीटिंग्स कब कब होंगी, कैसे होंगी, और क्या उसमें रेफर किया जाएगा, उस पर फैसला करिए फैमिली चार्टर के अनुरूप. दूसरा काम है ग्रूमिंग सक्सेसर्स. आज की डेट में जो मैनेजमेंट में लोग के इंचार्ज लोग हैं, उनके सक्सेसर कल को कौन होने वाले हैं, उनको आपने ग्रूम करना है. दोज पीपल कुड बी एम्प्लॉयज, कुड बी फैमिली मेंबर्स who are going to really succeed, and what kind of incentive plan you're going to really have it for them is also becomes very important. Then different management processes. When I talk of management processes, the process of delegation of authority, the policy, the processes of internal control, internal operating controls, internal financial controls, all these management processes one need to actually define, so that there is a proper management succession and there's no overlap, there's no misuse of power at any level. And ownership succession, of course, will happen. Again, one really refer back to an ownership succession to the family charter, family ethics, and the business meetings and family council will decide ownership succession. Family governance and shareholders agreement. They are all going to decide ownership succession, because जो आपके फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं उनका आपस में शेयर होल्डर्स एग्रीमेंट होना, और फैमिली की डिफरेंट जो वोट्स हैं उनको किस तरह से वोट किया जाएगा, किस डायरेक्शन में किया जाएगा. कैन there could be conditions only in which they can be used freely, or Mr. A or Mr. B or a group of ABC will decide in which direction all shareholders are going to vote. Because we are aware that in family business also there could be listed companies, there could be closely held companies, there could be outside independent directors, there could be investment directors. For example, there is a PE fund which is coming, there could be directors representing those PE funds or venture funds. So the things, as we are moving towards larger and larger businesses, are becoming more and more complex for family businesses. So इसीलिए शेयर होल्डर्स एग्रीमेंट होना, जो फैमिली के शेयर होल्डर्स हैं उनका आपस में, और उसको एक फैमिली गवर्नेंस के तहत चलना, वो बहुत जरूरी है ताकि ओनरशिप सक्सेशन ठीक से हो जाए. नहीं तो आपको डिवाइड एंड रूल कर लेंगे लोग. बिकॉज कोई अपनी 20-30% शेयर होल्डिंग के साथ आपके छिन्न भिन्न कर देगा. आप देख रहे हैं, रोज देख रहे हैं, पीपल लाइक भारत पे में देखिए कितना झगड़ा हुआ, उधर यस बैंक में झगड़ा हुआ, यस बैंक का प्रमोटर ही देखिए अब कहाँ चला गया, वो झगड़ा करने से अपने ब्रदर की वाइफ के साथ उसका झगड़ा हुआ. ही इज इन बिग डिफिकल्टी. So that is why one has to really see how the shareholders agreement, how you really you need to learn to live together, and live together with coexistence, giving value to each other's interest. Now, desired outcome देखिए क्या है सारी चीज का, that family members are integrated, you have to assess different options and take an informed decision and ensure that comfort levels are achieved. ये सारा काम जो है ये फैमिली कम्युनिकेशन से होता है, चाहे फैमिली को इंटीग्रेट रखने का है, चाहे डिफरेंट ऑप्शंस को एक्सेस करने का है, और एक इन्फॉर्म डिसीजन मेकिंग का है, और कंफर्ट देना सब बाकी लोगों को सबको। देखिए सारा कम्युनिकेशन से होगा। जिस फैमिली में कम्युनिकेशन ठीक नहीं होता उसमें फिर झगड़े झगड़े होते हैं। इसीलिए रेगुलरली हम लोग सजेस्ट करते हैं कि एटलीस्ट ऑल पीपल हु आर पार्ट ऑफ द डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस शुड मीट मिनिमम वंस ए मंथ फॉर्मली। सही मायने में तो एक्चुअल इन फैमिलीज these meetings happens almost once a week regularly, and the top people, top 2 3 people meet almost on a daily basis to take important family decisions, important business decisions. But the larger family, whosoever are having major stakes, say earlier we used to say all male members, but now females are also started taking a good day-to-day activities. Whichever female or males are taking interest or taking active part, you need to have family business meetings regularly. Once in a month is minimum, maybe possible is twice a month. If there are some special issues, maybe even earlier. And family council meeting is a meeting where in all ladies and all people who are actually passive investors or who have passive interest in the family business, they are also actually required to participate. Because we have seen that if those people who are not involved into day-to-day business, who are not involved into day-to-day decisions, if they are not actually involved and told about the objective of the business, the status of the business, direction which the business is going, the risk which we are facing, how we are assessing various risks, how the succession is being planned of the management, how the ownership is being planned, what is the and basic decisions. When we talk of informed decision making, then informed decision making, they also participate on very, very important issues. Like for example, this issue was there that whether to who will become successor. Suppose you don't see any successor in the family to become the managing director of the company. Now the decision has to be taken that who should be the managing director outside the family. So first the decision about that we can make a managing director from outside the family, that decision itself has to be taken by the family council, initially by the family business meetings, and then of course ultimately by the family council. Unless you do that, it may really boomerang. We are all aware that between Mr. Mukesh Ambani and Mr. Anil Ambani, what significant role Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani's wife has actually played. We are all aware the kind of role they have played, and also the kind of role other 2 3 advisors, including the former ICICI chairman and other people, also have actually participated in enabling them to take a decision in the right direction. So several of us, I think, participate with several businesses, and like we as a professional firm regularly participate with different businesses, guiding them what decision they should take in what manner, and who should be the primary successor, who should be the secondary successor, and who should be the ultimate successor of the ownership. And similarly, management succession also, they take our views and we help them. I think this is an important thing for all professionals to really undertake. We go to the next slide. Can we go to next slide? मालविया जी देखे, ट्राई करिए. आ गया हो गया, वेरी गुड. अभी एक बार दोबारा ट्राई करिए, अगर बड़ा हो जाए थोड़ा सा तो अभी स्लाइड शो नहीं आ रहा है हमारे पास.
Yes, sir. I'm trying.
ट्राई करिए. हाँ, नीचे से देखिए. हाँ, नो चला ही गया इस चक्कर में, सॉरी. पार्टिसिपेंट्स भी ना पूरा देख नहीं पाते हैं, छोटे छोटी स्क्रीन होती हैं, दे आर नॉट एबल टू रियली अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट वी आर डूइंग. हाँ, अब आगे देखिए. Determine how the succession planning process will work, including a communication plan. Consider the views of the current management, including objectives, timing, and personal matters. ये देखिए पूरा प्रोसेस हमने समझाया यहाँ पर कि पहले तो आप प्रोसेस कैसे करेगा उसको हमने भी पूरा प्रोसेस पीछे समझाया आपको. फिर कंसीडर द व्यूज ऑफ द करंट मैनेजमेंट. करंट मैनेजमेंट सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है आपके लिए. उनका ऑब्जेक्टिव है, उनकी टाइमिंग है, उनके पर्सनल मैटर्स है, सारी चीज ठीक से समझिए. Determine the financial needs of the current management who is retiring and the viability of the business to support those needs. इसको समझना बहुत जरूरी है। पता लगा उनकी नीड्स तो बहुत हाई हैं और बिजनेस वायबल ही नहीं रहेगा उनकी नीड को पूरा करते करते, तो कुछ और आपको ऑल्टरनेटिव सोचना ही पड़ेगा। या तो नीड्स को कम करना पड़ेगा या फिर बिजनेस के कुछ हिस्सों को बेचकर उनकी नीड्स को पूरा करना पड़ेगा। कंसिडर द पोटेंशियल सक्सेसर मैनेजमेंट इंक्लूडिंग कैपेबिलिटीज, कंफर्ट विद सुपरवाइजिंग, फॉर्मर पीयर्स एंड रोल एक्सेप्टेंस। ये पोटेंशियल सक्सेसर को करंट मैनेजमेंट जो है वो ठीक से वे करेंगे विद द एंड आल्सो विल रन थ्रू with their peers also. Then understand the family members' role in the company, including those outside the business and future family members. जो फैमिली मेंबर अभी मेजर हो गए उनको, जो मेजर होने वाले उनको, जो मेजर होने के बाद भी मैच्योर हो गए उनको, सबको देखना पड़ेगा आपको कि यहाँ भी कौन किसका क्या रोल हो सकता है और कौन क्या कैपेबिलिटी है, किसका क्या पास बिहेवियर रहा है, किसका एथिकल पैटर्न क्या है, किसका विजन क्या है, किसका पैशन क्या है, किसका मिशन क्या है और कौन क्या क्या गड़बड़ कर सकता है। ये सारी चीजों को आपको ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा। Maintain a process which provides for periodic review to determine viability of succession plan, including after the plan is in place and is being executed. इसे पीरियोडिक रिव्यू करना जरूरी, ये नहीं कि एक बार आपने प्लान कर लिया तो नहीं अब तो हो गया जी हमारा फाइनल, अब तो मेरा टेस्ट यहीं अड़ा इसी तरह होगा, अब तो डिसीजन हो गया। दिस इज नेवर डन। You know, you have to actually periodically review. Every 6 months, every year, you need to definitely review in which direction it is going. And it is not a one-day job. It is a process which may take 3 months, which may take 3 years. So it has to be done accordingly. Incorporate an appropriate methodology for transferring wealth in accordance with current shareholders' desires. देखिए wealth तो current shareholders के हिसाब से चलेगी. Please appreciate this because it is their wealth. The shareholders' wealth is of the shareholders. तो जो करंट शेयर है उनके डिजायर के हिसाब से ही उनका जो दिल क्या कहता है, मैंने शुरू में बताया था आपको पे डे 1 पे, लव मनी कंट्रोल, अल्टीमेटली योर हार्ट इज द किंग, बट यू हैव टू डेफिनेटली इंश्योर that while you are exercising your heart decision, you consult your mind also, ensuring that you do not create a trouble for the entire business itself because you love somebody too much. Actually, go to the next, please. अब देखिए हम लोग ना सक्सेशन प्लानिंग को ये सोचते हैं कर लेंगे, अभी जल्दी क्या है। A family business ignoring its succession plan is akin to a 30 years old worker ignoring his retirement plan. Both events, succession and retirement, seems like they're long way off, but the reality is that ignoring the early years can lead to a major problem down the road. ये देखिए सक्सेशन प्लानिंग जब आप 60 के 65 के 70 के हो जाए जब ही नहीं शुरू करनी है। This has to start when you're midway in about 35 40 years of age. From that day itself you start nurturing the successors and start looking at things. Because it is a process. Plan for a process, not an event. ये नहीं suddenly आज से भैया मैंने अनाउंस कर दिया I am retiring, कल से so and so is the boss. Succession process require a lot of planning and preparation. Business owners should be concerned about generating adequate financial returns, having sufficient trust in the potential successors, and receiving enough interest from potential successors to take over the business. आपका इंटरेस्ट उनमें जरूरी है, उनका इंटरेस्ट बिजनेस में जरूरी है. One should also figure out legal and tax issues associated with succession. ये लीगल एंड टैक्स इश्यूज भी बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हैं. लीगल इश्यूज तो आपको अखिलेश जी और अनन्या जी बहुत अच्छे से समझा सकते हैं. टैक्सेशन इश्यूज में आस्था है और हमारे और बाकी टैक्सेशन एक्सपर्ट, तो आप हर आदमी जो इसे सुन रहे हो, मोस्ट ऑफ यू आर वेरी गुड टैक्सेशन एक्सपर्ट्स, so you can give your input and guidance, or otherwise in case you need some deeper expertise, then you can always consult the seniors in the profession. Now the third thing which is important while designing a family business succession strategy is family values. Family values are not a slogan, please understand this. ये life and death का सवाल है business की. During times of conflict or struggle, the leadership and the family employees will rally around the family values, using them as a guide post for making tough decisions. देखिए टफ डिसीजन करने ही पड़ते हैं फैमिली में, और अगर फैमिली की वैल्यूज नहीं होती तो टफ डिसीजन नहीं कर पाते हैं आप, और इसलिए फिर बिजनेसेस सफर करते हैं. सक्सेशन प्लानिंग शुड बी एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू क्रिएट अ कंपास दैट अ फैमिली गेट्स टू कैरी फ्रॉम जनरेशन टू जनरेशन. तो इसलिए देखिए मैंने शुरू में बताया था, सबसे शुरू में, कि आप लिखिए फैमिली वैल्यूज क्या हैं, फैमिली का कल्चर क्या है, लिखिए. जस्ट ट्राई एंड राइट इट. When you try and write it, it becomes difficult initially, but then it becomes very important. When you write it, you share with other family members and give it a shape. गिव इट अ शेप, बिकॉज एक बार लिख लेंगे तो हर आदमी उसमें गलतियां निकालेगा, उसमें इंप्रूवमेंट के सजेशंस देगा, एंड देन यू विल बी एबल टू रियली कम टू द रियल फैमिली वैल्यूज, द रियल फैमिली कल्चर, द रियल फैमिली इथोस। बिकॉज फैमिली इथोस, फैमिली वैल्यूज, ये वो एक ऐसी बेस है, ये आपकी जिसे कहते हैं नींव है आपके परिवार की, आपके परिवार के बिजनेस की, जो आपको पकड़ के रखेगी, जकड़ के रखेगी, और ग्रोथ करने में, सस्टेन ग्रोथ में सबसे बड़ा सहयोग करेगी फैमिली वैल्यूज। इसलिए फैमिली वैल्यूज, द फैमिलीज विच हैव नो वैल्यूज डू नॉट सर्वाइव लॉन्ग। वो तो एक जनरेशन भी नहीं चलती, 3 जनरेशन की तो बात ही छोड़ दीजिए, और 10 जनरेशन चलने की बात तो होती नहीं। यू नो, वी हैव सीन, फॉर एग्जांपल, बिरला एज अ फैमिली, वी हैव सीन द वे द फैमिली वैल्यूज in Birlas have gone from stage to stage. I think we have seen at least 6-7 generations in Birlas. And one very important thing, I think, with Birla family, they work on grandfather grandson theory. I don't know whether Ananya, have you shared with them about the grandson grandfather theory or not.
Yes, sir. It's in there in the presentation, sir.
It is there in the presentation. It is going to come, but I thought I'll mention it here wherever it occurs to me. That is the right time to really talk to about grandfather grandson theory. Birla has actually run a grandfather grandson theory in family businesses. For example, when you see Aditya Birla Group, Shri Aditya Birla's father, Aditya Vikram Birla, Mr. Vikram Birla, is Aditya Vikram Birla, Aditya Birla's father. No, today it is known as Aditya Birla Group, but actually it is not Aditya Birla Group. There are two groups there. One is
Uh,
Vikram Birla Group, another is Aditya Birla Group.
so if I
Because
may
Vikram
intervene,
Birla's
if we can go to slide 67, we can show them the entire
slide 67
module.
दिखाइए जी,
Okay.
67 दिखाइए, सीधा 67 पर आ जाइए, फिर वापस आ जाएंगे वहीं। 67 प्लीज, नहीं तो
So
रंगा राव
one
आगे
slide
बढ़ो,
above this. Mavya,
वन
one
स्लाइड
slide
अबाउट
above this.
66 लीजिए।
66, my mistake, 66.
ये गोयनका साहब का, इससे पहले देखिए, गोयनका मॉडल है ये।
इसके हाँ सॉरी, इसके आगे थोड़ा चल जाइए माव्या प्लीज, इसके आगे आगे, आई मीन लाइक पीछे।
पहले होगी बेटा, शुरू में होगी ग्रैंडफादर ग्रैंडसन। तो ये बिल्डर ग्रुप
माव्या
है।
स्लाइड 63 64, यस।
ये है ना, ये तो स्लाइड है।
Yes, sir.
So if you see this, this slide, I think I have started from Raja Bala Devdas Birla, his 4 sons, J.K. Birla, R.D. Birla, B.M. Birla, and G.D. Birla. And G.D. Birla has 3 sons, Ellen Birla, K.K. Birla, and B.K. Birla. B.K. Birla's son is Mr. Aditya Vikram Birla. Aditya Vikram Birla's son is Kumar Mangalam Birla, the chartered accountant who is currently in charge of the business of the Aditya Birla Group. Actually, we are all aware that Mr. Aditya Birla died in a plane crash in Bangalore long ago. And as per grandson grandfather theory, Mr. Aditya Birla's entire wealth, entire shareholding ownership has to go to Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla's son. And what Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla is supposed to get is the ownership of Mr. B.K. Birla. Because Aditya Vikram Birla got everything from G.D. Birla, his grandfather. And B.K. Birla will give to Kumar Mangalam Birla. That is what is called grandfather grandson theory. The grandfather gave his succession only to the grandson, and his son will give to his grandson. Because I think that is what is being followed by the entire Birla group, actually, practically. Except I think in latest, because now the families, so certain families, the children are not there. Like for example, we see this is, I think, in certain factions. For example, this in Hindustan Times group, I think that is KK Birla group. He has only 3 daughters, and he has divided his business among 3 daughters. But coming back to Aditya Vikram Birla, that grandfather grandson theory, just to explain to you, as soon as Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla's son, who was born, of course, few years ago, As soon as he becomes 25 years of age, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla will be expected to resign from the directorship and managing directorship of all the companies which his father was having, Aditya Vikram Birla. And he will continue as director and shareholder only in the companies which was earlier owned by Mr. B.K. Birla. That is what is the grandfather grandson theory. ये क्यों करते हैं ऐसा? Sometimes I ask some builders. We have worked with certain portions of builder families. We ask them sometimes, why do they do this actually? They have a feeling among the builder family that between father and son there could be conflict. When father and son work together in a business, there are conflict, natural conflict, because when son come into the business, father is already quite active at that time. He is a quite good decision maker, and the son takes him as interfering in his decision, and father takes son as interfering into his decisions. There is a natural conflict of interest of decision making between a father and son, but there is no such conflict of interest between a father and a grandson, or between grandson and a grandfather, because grandfather feels that this grandson has just come into the business. Let me give a chance to him. I am going to retire maybe another 2, 3, 4 years. And that there is a similar feeling with the grandson, that my grandfather is there in this business for another few years. अभी इनकी बात मान ले तो अच्छी बात है, क्या हानि है, क्या बुराई है? So I think this is one theory which we really work in the builder family. That is what we have seen. And you see, year after year after, if you see the other slide, इसमें सर राजा बालदेव बिरला had his son R.D. Birla. R.D. Birla has Gajanan Birla, then his son Ashok Vardhan Birla, then his son Yashovardhan Birla, and Yashovardhan Birla's son Vedant Birla and Nirman Birla. You see, MP Birla group is the group, if you recall, MP Birla's wife. MP Birla had no successor, and his wife, what is her name? Yashovardhani or something like that. She left all her assets, all ownership, in the name of their auditors, Loda and Company, Mr. Loda, who was our former president, and maybe his one of his sons. And he never gave anything to, R.D. Birla has possibly two sons, Gajanan Birla and MP Birla. So in normal course, MP Birla's all assets on his death, based on Hindu succession law, would have gone to Yashovardhan Birla, who is alive, Ashok Vardhan Birla's son. But the MP Birla's wife thought it otherwise, because we understand that Mr. Yashovardhan Birla had not even met her for last 20 years before her death. So that is ultimately, love, money and control goes appropriately, and that is why, she decided that let it go to Lodas rather than going to Birlas. So I think these are certain succession things which we thought we should discuss. इसके आगे पीछे वाली स्लाइड से दिखाइए. I think we can go back there, where we were actually. Can we go back there?
Yes, sir.
Because otherwise we're stuck in Godrej and Birlas and like that, Goenkas. Okay, they are also different models. So designing a family business succession strategy, how do you do it? Hold meetings and discuss succession. ये चुप रहने की चुपचाप करने वाली कोई चीज नहीं है. The process of involving and communicating with family members, no matter which generation they belong to, are the immediate contributions to the and उनका क्या contribution रहा, you have to consider. Discuss with everybody. Decision तो करेगा decision maker ultimately. Please appreciate, it is important to understand everybody's perspective. Whether he might be a decision maker, may not be decision maker, might be a prospect or whatever. Develop a written family constitution is very important, as I told you, family charter. The best way to cement a succession plan is to construct it in conjunction with a written family constitution. The constitution serves two functions. It acts as a governing document that promotes ongoing family business continuity. It defines and emphasizes family values. ये जो फैमिली वैल्यूज जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डॉक्यूमेंट ही मेरे को कह रहा है कि फैमिली फर्स्ट नहीं है भैया, बिजनेस फर्स्ट है, और प्रोफेशनल वैल्यूज होंगी, प्रोफेशनल बेसिस पर डिसीजन होगा, तो दादाजी को सब बाद में गालियां नहीं दे सकते यार दादाजी ने गड़बड़ कर दी. वो बोला दादाजी के दादाजी ने डिसाइड किया था फैमिली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, और ये सदियों से हमारे परिवार में चला आ रहा है. और दादाजी ने तो सिर्फ फॉलो किया, फादर ने उसे सपोर्ट किया या चाचा जी ने उसे सपोर्ट किया, एंड अकॉर्डिंगली द डिसीजंस वर टेकन. Otherwise, that will actually arrest lot of unrest in your family if you have a proper written family constitution. Sometime family constitution may say, I'm not advocating what it is, but I've seen some family constitution people say, for example, in a Parsi family, some of the Parsi families I know, we are consulting them, we are providing or consulting to them. They have written in their family constitution charter that if anybody marry outside a Parsi, then he will not be entitled to any succession. Nothing will go to a person who marry, whether a daughter or a son. Nothing will go to them. Nothing can go to them as per family constitution. ऐसा उनका family charter है. तो मैं आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट इट इज राइट और इट इज रॉन्ग, बट इट इज अ फैक्ट. तो काफी पारसी फैमिलीज में हमने देखा है. और ऑफ कोर्स देयर आर डिफरेंट फैमिलीज हैव डिफरेंट फैमिली वैल्यूज एंड फैमिली एथिक्स. वी गो टू द नेक्स्ट प्लीज. एजुकेट योर फैमिली. एजुकेशन इज द फाउंडेशन ऑफ ए सक्सेसफुल ट्रांजिशन. देखिए, आज मैं अपने चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भाइयों से, जितने भी मेरे साथ आज जुड़े हैं, उनसे सबसे एक बात उनके थ्रू कहना चाहता हूँ, बिजनेसमैन से. I'm observing it very, I don't know, what should I say? Sometimes we feel pity about it. A very large number of business family are not educating their sons. Daughters are getting educated, but वो तो बताया मोदी जी ने, बेटी बढ़ाओ, बेटी पढ़ाओ, बेटी बचाओ. वो ठीक है, बट बेटियां तो पढ़ रही हैं, पर बेटे हमने देखा ज्यादातर बिजनेस फैमिलीज के ना पढ़ते हैं ना काम करते हैं ठीक से. They only take education only for namesake. Most of them, a significant 60-70% of business families, their male members are not taking education seriously, creating a biggest challenge of their life for family succession, business succession, because they become completely incompetent. Education is not only the formal education, even how to run a business, what is important, costing कैसे करनी है प्रोडक्ट्स की, मार्केटिंग कैसे करनी है, क्रेडिट कंट्रोल कैसे करना है, वो कुछ नहीं सीखना चाहते, ना सीखते हैं. फॉर्मल एजुकेशन तो करते ही नहीं है. फॉर्मल एजुकेशन के नाम पर देख, आउट ऑफ इंडिया डू एमबीए फॉर द नेम सेक, जहाँ ना क्लासेस होते हैं ना कुछ होता है. होती भी है तो बस इट इज ऑल, दे ऑल गो फॉर एंजॉयमेंट फॉर 2 years 3 years, एंजॉय एंड कम बैक. यू आस्क दैट क्वेश्चन 1-to-1 क्वाइटली विद एनीबडी, पीपल आर गोइंग टू रिस्पॉन्ड, नहीं नहीं सर, मैंने तो वहाँ कुछ खास सीखा नहीं, आई जस्ट वेंट. यू सी, व्हेन यू आस्क देम क्या सीखा आपने, क्या मैनेजमेंट प्रिंसिपल क्या सीख किया है, दे आर नॉट एबल टू सेंड टेल यू इवन 2 sentences what to talk about and understanding. So it is very important to educate your successors. Without training and learning, people struggle to contextualize what they need to do in succession process. A family must be capable enough to perform the following tasks: meet challenges, opportunity harnessing, vision, initiative and business acumen. उसके लिए तैयार करिए अपने successors को. Handle conflict. How will they handle conflict, whether for family or business reasons, and accept positions of responsibility in the company? कैसे करेंगे जब तक आप उन्हें तैयार ही नहीं करेंगे, कैपेबल ही नहीं बनाएंगे. Act as advocates. अखिलेश जी, अनन्या जी की तरह एडवोकेट करिए उन्हें फॉर द बिजनेस, नो मैटर देयर प्रेजेंट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. उनको बताइए बिजनेस में क्या क्या जिम्मेवारी, कैसे उन्हें अपने आप को तैयार करना है. उन्हें ठीक से समझाइए, बात करिए उनसे, प्रवचन नहीं करिए उनके साथ, उनसे बात करिए, हार्ट टू हार्ट बात करिए, समझाइए उन्हें. बचपन में छोटे से थे जब से समझाना शुरू करिए कि क्या चीज जरूरी है, फैमिली वैल्यूज, फैमिली कल्चर, हमारे यहाँ क्या जरूरी है, बिजनेस में क्या जरूरी होता है, बिजनेस सर्वाइव कैसे होता है, बिजनेस में एक एक पैसा बचा के कैसे ग्रो किया जाता है, ये भी समझना जरूरी है. पैसे की वैल्यू उन्हें समझानी जरूरी है, एथिक्स की वैल्यू समझानी उन्हें जरूरी है, इमोशन की वैल्यू उन्हें समझानी जरूरी है, और बिहेवियर की रिलेशनशिप की वैल्यू उन्हें समझानी जरूरी है. ये देखिए आसान नहीं है, बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि आपको पता नहीं कैसे सक्सेसर आपके पास आ गया, वो समझना ही नहीं चाहता, तो उसे छोड़ के आगे बढ़ना होगा आपको. You have to look for an alternative. See, the family business has a living legacy with an interconnected past and future. ये living legacy है. ये ऐसा नहीं है कि हाँ भाई बस एक के बाद दूसरा, दूसरे के बाद तीसरा सक्सेसर आता जाएगा और बिजनेस चलता जाएगा. It doesn't happen this way. You have to prepare your family for succession. Educate them, train them. मैंने देखा है, I remember when I used to work for DCM Limited, I have seen Lala Charatram and Lala Bharatram. Both of them ensured that their children undergo training as the executive training or a management training. And they used to report for years, several years altogether. They used to report to the employees concerned, their seniors. And they were told, the employees concerned, who were their seniors, were also told clearly. And more importantly, the children were told that you are an employee of the company. Don't try and think that you are Charatram's son. The day you try and boss over your seniors because you're Charatram's son, you will no more in the family, no more in the business at all. You will be thrown out the same day. And try and learn. देखिए, that is how, some of them who could actually follow this did very well in their career. Some of them who could not, some of them who actually changed their course or direction, they could not really carry on the business properly. So ultimately, it is everybody's funeral. What is going to really happen? Can we go to the next, please? जहां तक ट्रेनिंग की बात की, आई रिमेंबर फॉर्मर आईसीएससी चेयरमैन, a very famous person. Even that day, I think Mr. Narayan Murthy, he was with us. He was sharing his whole process. He said that ultimately regular training is important even for me. A person like Narayan Murthy, a person like our HDFC head, everybody go at least minimum for 1 week every year for training. For purely they go for training actually. तो ट्रेनिंग उनको रेगुलर भी जरूरी है और कैरियर के शुरुआत में भी जरूरी है. हाउ टू मैनेज पीपल, हाउ टू मैनेज मनी, हाउ टू मैनेज बिजनेसेस, हाउ टू मैनेज वैल्यूज, हाउ टू मैनेज एथिक्स, everything is necessary. And how to manage media, how to manage politics, all that one has to really understand. Major issues to be taken care of: minimizing disputes, distribution, best channel, and cost. How family structure and proprietor and partnership can converge into companies without disturbing their succession plans is something which one might have to really look at. Tax and stamp duty impact, no owner name change, on transfer of another entity, transfer of subsidiaries to separate successors. All this is a planning process. किस किस को क्या देना है, कौन क्या रन करेगा, इज ए प्रोसेस. चलिए आगे चलिए, हमें बहुत है काम पढ़ाने के लिए. क्या टाइम हुआ अभी? 6 बज गए. तो माविया जी, कितनी देर तक और पढ़ा सकते हैं हम?
सर वैसे द फॉर्मली टाइम इज 4 to 6, बट यू कैन कैरी ऑन सर.
कितनी देर करेंगे अनन्या? हम लोग 15-20 मिनट और कर लें.
सर जैसा आपके लिए कंफर्टेबल हो सर.
अखिलेश, यू आर कंफर्टेबल?
Sir, I am very comfortable, but the concern is, sir, this is on, I think we are on the slide 7. And
We are
15
on slide 17, not 7.
Yeah, 17, sir. But और 15-20 मिनट में सब कुछ नहीं हो पाएगा ज़्यादा.
नहीं, जितना होगा उतना ही करेंगे बेटा.
जी.
स्लाइड्स कितनी है इसमें हमारे पास?
67, more than 67.
मोर देन 67. देखिए, फिर भी ऐसा नहीं है, बहुत सारी बात की स्लाइड्स का मैं ऑलरेडी बता चुका हूँ. ऐसा नहीं है. स्लाइड के हिसाब से चलते हैं. स्लाइड इज ओनली अ स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट. And I think on the first slide itself where I started, I have given lot of input actually. I think काफी input already जा चुका है members के पास कि कैसे इससे succeed करना है. आगे चलिए. ये थोड़ा सा I think we'll take less time. ये देखिए, ये मैं already बता चुका हूँ, जिसमें cross holding in family entities, of course, one major issue which is there. Son A, son B, son C, and in the company's operating company, everybody is the owner. This is the biggest problem which people create actually for themselves. फिर अब कल को आपको डिवीजन करना होता है तो बहुत सारे इश्यूज हो जाते हैं. वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. तो होल्डिंग सब्सिडरीज बनानी है, इंडिविजुअल लोन बनानी है, कैसे बनानी है, प्लानिंग बहुत ढंग से करनी पड़ती है. और डिफरेंट बच्चों को डिफरेंट जिम्मेवारी देनी है, किस तरह से देनी है. दैट इज व्हाट वन हैज टू रियली सी. सपोज सन ए आल्सो हैज थ्री चिल्ड्रन, and son B also have 2 children, and son C has also 5 children. It becomes still complex, more complex, no? So, and there are cross holdings between the family members. उनकी बीवियां भी शेयर होल्डर हैं, मदर भी शेयर होल्डर है, भाई भी शेयर होल्डर है, कजन भी शेयर होल्डर है, चाचा जी भी शेयर होल्डर है, मामा जी भी शेयर होल्डर हैं. तो दैट थिंग्स बिकम वेरी वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स. तो हम चार्टर्ड अकाउंट भाइयों के लिए भरोसे जरूरी है ये इंश्योर करना कि क्रॉस होल्डिंग में इतना ना उलझ जाए कि आदमी उससे निकल नहीं सके, वो चक्रव्यूह बन जाए जिससे अभिमन्यु निकल नहीं पाया था. तो दैट इज व्हाट वन हैज टू सी. सक्सेशन प्लानिंग में ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट अहम मुद्दा है कि क्रॉस होल्डिंग ना हो, क्रॉस होल्डिंग कम से कम हो. गो अहेड फॉर द. There should be normally no distribution of business assets among family members during continuation of business. In case withdrawal of one's own share is permitted, it should be allowed in a planned manner. Different branches of the family may have tendency to draw more and more. In case of business need, different branches of family to be mandated to contribute, or the resultant change in ownership and profit ratio need to be planned in advance. पहले बता दिया जाए फैमिली चार्टर के तहत, भाई जब आगे बिजनेस की ग्रोथ होगी आपको देखिए इतना इतना पैसा रेगुलर आप ड्राइंग करते हैं, आप इंडिपेंडेंटली इन्वेस्ट करना चाहें कहीं भी करें, पर अगर फैमिली की ग्रोथ की जरूरत होगी, आपको पैसा वापस लाना होगा, नहीं आप फैमिली में पैसा लाए, तो फिर नेचुरली आपकी ओनरशिप भी चेंज हो जाएगी, आपकी प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग रेशो भी चेंज हो जाएगी। ये पता होना चाहिए फैमिली केयर मेंबर को। इसमें कोई देयर आर नो फ्री लंचेस, इसमें बिल्कुल इट वन हैज टू बी वेरी ruthless in this regard. Business assets should not be diverted or utilized for social oblique personal purpose of the family. बिजनेस से एलोकेट करिए सेपरेट एसेट जो ड्राइंग के तौर पर हैं, उसका एक तरीका बताइए, एक क्वांटम बताइए, एक प्रोसेस बताइए कि 20 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट होगा तो कितने पैसे निकाल सकते हैं प्राइवेट खर्चों के लिए, 50 करोड़ का तो कितने निकाल सकते हैं, और कल को 5 करोड़ का ही रह गया तो निकाल भी सकते हैं, नहीं निकाल सकते हैं, सैलरी लेवल कितने गिर जाएंगे, वो सारी बातें तय होनी चाहिए आपस में। तो एवरीथिंग इज लिंक्ड अल्टीमेटली। यू गो टू द नेक्स्ट प्लीज। ऑफ कोर्स ड्यूटीज एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज आपने एलोकेट करनी है ठीक से, एजुकेशन के बेस पर, कैपेबिलिटी के बेस पर, इंटरेस्ट के बेस पर, एक्सपीरियंस के बेस पर, बिजनेस इंटरेस्ट एंड एक्चुअल परफॉर्मेंस के बेस पर। इट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू डिसाइड डिवाइड ड्यूटीज एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज। गो अहेड। Major issues: appropriate checks and balances, clear fiduciary obligation of management towards minority shareholders, those not in day-to-day governance. आपके फैमिली के बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे होंगे जो डे टू डे गवर्नेंस में नहीं होंगे या माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर हैं, उनको उनके प्रति आपकी फिड्यूशियरी जिम्मेवारी है, आप उनके साथ बेईमानी नहीं करेंगे, कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस अच्छे से रखेंगे। देखिए फैमिली बिजनेसेस को ग्रो करने के लिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट ये है कि फैमिली का कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस एकदम ट्रांसपेरेंट हो, एथिकल हो, एंड दोज फैमिली बिजनेसेस वेयर cash transactions are done or off the balance sheet transactions are done, those businesses are going to really die very soon, not very far away. एक जनरेशन से दूसरी जनरेशन मुश्किल जाएंगे, तीसरी में तो जा ही नहीं सकते हो। They are definitely going to die unless there is a proper control even on cash management actually. So whether it is in cash or whether it is in check, the money has to be controlled very very carefully, very very categorically. Board of directors with appropriate blend of independent directors prepared to guide the family directors where necessary, risk of destabilization and control to balance. देखिए ये बड़ा डिफिकल्ट मामला है जो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर वाला है, एंड समटाइम्स वन ब्रदर में लाइक broadly quietly bring independent directors of his choice and then try and start dominating on others. Suppose there are 3 brothers, everybody is holding 20% share each और 15% शेयर each, बाकी सब फैमिली मेंबर्स में हैं, तो पता लगा बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स में डिसीजन कैसे होंगे, बोर्ड मेजोरिटी से होते हैं अल्टीमेटली। तो बोर्ड मेजोरिटी में पता लगा सुननी बंद कर दी उन्होंने 2 भाइयों की। तो मतलब ये ध्यान से देखना पड़ेगा उसका रिस्क को, डिस्टेबलाइजेशन को, कंट्रोल को, क्योंकि कई बार एक आदमी के हाथ में पूरा कंट्रोल जाने में समटाइम्स अप्रोप्रिएट चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस नहीं होते हैं। तो फैमिली वैल्यूज के हिसाब से इस काम को करना चाहिए। टू टेक कॉग्निजेंस ऑफ कल्चर ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स एक्टिविज्म with a supporting media and financial environment able to shake up poorly performing companies. देखिए इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग आजकल होने लगी है, ई एजीएम भी होने लगी हैं, तो आपके जो भी छोटे बड़े पब्लिक शेयर होल्डर्स हैं, प्राइवेट शेयर होल्डर्स हैं, प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट में भी शेयर होल्डर हैं, हर एक आदमी को आज हक मिल गया है एक्टिवली बिजनेस के डिसीजन मेकिंग को पार्टिसिपेट करने का। आप देख रहे हैं ना क्या हो रहा है अपना जी ग्रुप में, यस बैंक की कंसेंट नहीं मिलती उन्हें, यस बैंक वालों को जी वालों की कंसेंट नहीं मिलती। वो ग्रो करना चाहते हैं, प्रॉस्पर करना चाहते हैं, नए बिजनेसेस, वो सोनी को अपना जी का बिजनेस बेचना चाहते हैं फॉर एग्जांपल, यस बैंक इज नॉट परमिटिंग देम एंड दे हैव गॉट अ वेरी गुड डील विद सोनी, दैट इज व्हाट दे फील, यस बैंक डोंट फील दैट वेरी हैप्पी अबाउट इट। सो ये देखिए आसान नहीं है, फैमिली रन बिजनेस जी बिजनेस था, अब उसमें शेयर होल्डर आ गए यस बैंक जैसे या और आ गए, तो उनका भी बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट वो मैकेनिज्म हो गया। तो इस बात को बहुत ध्यान से रखना जरूरी है। रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क इज अनदर एरिया where checks and balances are required to be kept. Go to the next, please. Clause 49 तो खैर मेरे को पढ़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है, ऑडिट कमेटी, बोर्ड कंपोजिशन, वी गो टू द नेक्स्ट, ये तो करेंगे करना ही पड़ता है। Segregate between ownership and management could be one alternative of succession planning. Creating a trust and transferring the business to the trust, thereafter appointing professionals, unbiased, capable trustees to manage the business on behalf of beneficiary children. Sometimes the children are very young, sometimes they may not be capable, the other time they may not be taking interest, or you don't want to give there are 4 children, 3 children are not taking interest, you are not able to for whatever reason give charge to only a single child who is taking interest for maybe whatever reason. So it then definitely require an appropriate blend of independent directors or independent trustees to guide the process. The third alternative, of course, is like L&T have a corporate culture. shareholding to decide board seats, and board to decide the management. Ultimately, the corporate culture. What is the corporation all about? So accordingly, the decision is being taken based on the voting percentages, based on the contributions, and the things like. It is all about the corporate democracy, and how will you manage that corporate democracy for ensuring that successfully businesses keeps on growing and prospering. It is a very very difficult situation, and you can of course have a corporate culture, but if you have sizable holding with yourself, it is important to ensure that corporate culture is also managed in a proper manner. ये जो पहले मैंने कंसिडरेशन बताए हैं, बच्चों को तैयार करो, सक्सेसर्स को तैयार करो, उसमें फैमिली कल्चर एथिक डालो, उनकी कैपेबिलिटी डेवलप करो. असली सोल्यूशन तो वही है. देखिए, ये तो बाकी तो देखिए, दिस इज ऑल स्ट्रक्चर. ये तो एक मसौदा है कैसे चलना है. ऑफलोड द बिजनेस ऑफ कोर्स द फोर्थ ऑल्टरनेटिव. कि जैसे रेनबैक्सी ने अपना बिजनेस बेच दिया, and they have really encashed everything because they thought that their successors will not be able to run this large business, so they sold off the business, encashed it, and then of course they become investors in some here and there, but they are not running their own business. We go to the next, please. देखिए, daughters as successors, तो मैंने बताया कि I think more and more daughters are becoming actually now successors. We are seeing Apollo Hospital, the Reddy sisters, the Preeta, Sangeeta, and Sunita, and Shobhana. They are all serving as directors in Apollo Hospital, and I think there is adequate balance which is being done by Dr. Pratap Reddy's succession planning. And we have seen also, MC Corp Global, which is run by Mr. BK Modi, had decided to flag off Spice Global and offload to his son Dilip and daughter Divya. I think this is all happening. Actually, these are successions which are happening. But what issues could be there? We have seen, I think, in this. I'm taking names, but I think without taking names, I'll not be able to really appreciate. Jayaprakash Group, we have seen. Initially, there was some role which was given to son-in-law, but later on, the father-in-law realized that son-in-law may not be able to manage, and that's why they said, let the daughter manage. I'll not allow the son-in-law to interfere for several reasons, because family values, family cultures were going in a different direction. We go to the next, please. Exit and entry of new members in the family, they could bring new issues. क्योंकि फैमिली में तो नए मेंबर्स आते ही रहेंगे. वेदर बर्थ राइट इज एन एंट्री क्राइटेरिया इनटू द फैमिली, एंट्री इनटू द फैमिली बिजनेस. आपकी पैदा हो गए उसमें तो आपको मिलेगा फैमिली बिजनेस में एंट्री. क्या ये आपको आपका जो फैमिली गवर्नेंस लॉ है वो डिसाइड करेगा? शुड देयर बी अ प्रोफेशनल एक्सरसाइज ऑफ जजमेंट बेस्ड ऑन कैपेबिलिटी? वेदर इनकमिंग फैमिली मेंबर्स शुड हैव आउटसाइड एक्सपीरियंस बिफोर जॉइनिंग द बिजनेस? टू whom फैमिली मेंबर्स, देखिए ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट, थर्ड वाला बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. Especially, I think I'll like to talk to my chartered accountant brothers कि देखिए अल्टीमेटली कई बार हम सोचते हैं बेटे को ट्रेनिंग भी अपने पास ही करा लें, बेटी को ट्रेनिंग भी अपने पास ही करा लें. ये जो ट्रेनिंग जो अपने पास कराने का, आपकी ट्रेनिंग तो उसे बचपन से मिलती है, जीवन से. जिस दिन से पैदा हुआ ही इज गेटिंग automatically trained when he is living in that house with you, when he is moving with you. You have to give an option to your children. If you really want to grow and prosper, they should have at least minimum 3, 4, 5 years experience outside and learn the various business practices. और एक और प्रॉब्लम है, today when we see professionals as well as employees concerned, they want to shift jobs after jobs after jobs in the process of, and tell your family members, जहां भी आप काम करें लग के करें, because tricks of the trade and learning how the businesses are run will be done only when you at least continuously work for 2, 3, 4, 5 years in one particular business. Otherwise, you will not be able to really learn anything, nor will be able to bring any value. And when you become an employee of a third party, you try and work as if you really own the business. Work with that zeal and commitment. Only then you're going to really learn for the purpose for which your father and your parents have really sent you to that business. To whom family members joining the business should report in initial 5 years is also a big question. I think this I have already handled in Lala Charatram's example. To provide adequate incentives to next generation to join family business and freedom to self-actualize. Sometimes, we don't give them options. Many times we don't give them adequate freedom. ये दोनों ही वजह है कि कई बार हमारे जो यंग लोग हैं हमारे साथ जुड़ने से इनकार कर देते हैं, एंड दे रन अवे. दे वांट टू टेक डिफरेंट पोजीशंस. वो कह रहे हैं मैं तो स्टार्टअप करूंगा. वो कई बार वो स्टार्टअप करना भी नहीं चाहता, पर वो फादर को कहता है यार, फादर तो हिलने से पहले भी पूछते हैं क्या करना है. कोई फ्रीडम ही नहीं है मेरे को. आई हैव नो फ्रीडम ऑफ डिसीजन मेकिंग, बता दिया प्रोडक्शन में देखूंगा, लेकिन एवरी सिंगल डिसीजन फादर इज इंटरफेयरिंग. The father can oversee and see have a management by exception, but he can't interfere actually. So self actualize करने का मौका तो दीजिए बच्चों को. सीखेंगे कुछ, थोड़ा नुकसान करेंगे, सीखेंगे. Every learning has a cost. You have to bear it as a cost to determine when and how the current generation leadership will transition out of the business gradually. वो आपको प्लान करके चलना है धीरे धीरे. हम मेरे ख्याल से 7-8 मिनट और चलेंगे माविया जी, क्योंकि 6:22 हो गए. We'll
Okay,
will
sir, can we
will
take the
clear.
questions now?
Questions ले लीजिए आप.
Okay, okay, sir.
Questions ले लीजिए. I think that's better. स्टॉप शेयरिंग करके क्वेश्चंस लीजिए, ये बढ़िया है.
Um, Sir, these are the few questions sent by CA SP Goyal ji, and he requests us that you will take these questions.
क्वेश्चन सारे लेंगे, डोंट वरी, आप जितने आए सब ले लेंगे. बताइए.
Sir, they are not just a minute.
आप पढ़ दीजिए, अगर आप होस्ट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो पढ़ दीजिए. होस्ट कर दे तो बहुत अच्छे, सब लोग पढ़ लेंगे क्वेश्चंस को. हाँ, आ गया. ये श्री एसपी गोयल ने भेजे हैं.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thanks to him for framing so many questions. Query regarding succession and will planning today's seminar. If a person owns a commercial building registered in his individual name, but accounted for in the books of accounts of HUF, as the payment to the seller was made from the HUF account, the rent received from this property is accounted for in the HUF since last 20 years. Whether it will be treated as HUF property and how to plan its inheritance by will or otherwise during lifetime. देखिए, एक बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात है जो HUF के बारे में हमें सबको समझनी चाहिए. HUF assets are never registered in the name of the HUF. They have to be registered in the name of, normally in the name of the Karta. So registration, even if registration is in the name of the Karta, the ownership doesn't change. Ownership still continues. The beneficial ownership continue with the HUF. So आपकी जो example है इसमें commercial building जो है, it might be registered in the individual name, but actually it is an HUF property because books of accounts में भी आपने उसे HUF दिखाया, पेमेंट भी सारा सेलर को उसने HUF से किया है, 20 साल से रेंट भी आप HUF में रिसीव करके HUF में एसेस कर रहे हैं, तो it will be treated as a HUF property. Now, how do you plan its inheritance by will or otherwise during the lifetime? देखिए, HUF प्रॉपर्टी में मैंने उस दिन बताया था, अनन्या जी ने भी हमें एग्जांपल के तौर पर सिखाया था कि फादर का हिस्सा लिमिटेड है. सपोज ही इज वन फादर, he has wife, or maybe suppose he has 3 sons, 1 daughter and a wife. In this family his share is 1/5 or 1/6 हो गया, because his wife and 3 daughters and 1 son. Wife will have a share, Ananya?
Yes, sir.
Wife will also have a share. So he has, there are 6 members of the family. Wife is not a co-partner, but she is a member. Wife cannot ask for the division, but she is a co-partner. So today, suppose he wants to take a decision, suppose this property is of 100 crore value. So his share is only 1/6, that is 16.66 crores. So what he can actually arrange is that this 16.66 crore, this is 1/6 share, he can try and give it to his wife, or he wants to give it to his daughter, or he wants to give one of the sons, or he wants to give it a third party. He can always write a will appropriately of his own share. And the balance share will, of course, will go to the respective people on his death. Now there is a big debate about whether the HUF will continue or will not continue. So to avoid any confusion, because the current Hindu succession law after 2005 is talking of a theoretical partition on the date of the death. And there are many people who are interpreting that in case of a theoretical partition, when the death will happen, there will be actual partition in leaps and bounds, in meets and bounds. and everybody will get his own share, and HUF will not continue. So if you do not want that situation, all the family members can come to an agreement that HUF will continue even if there is a death of any member of the family, in spite of whatever is being said by HUF. Because the current Hindu succession law gives appropriate power to every single member to determine his share. So suppose all the 5-6 members decide together, or maybe the Karta decide and take consent of everybody and document it, that HUF will not dissolve. HUF will continue, and maybe even future generation will keep on taking benefit of it, और ये leaps and bounds में नहीं बटेगी. In that case, ये leaps and bounds में नहीं बटेगी, and it can continue as a HUF. But suppose it is not done, then everybody will get his own share. The son will get 1/6 share, the daughter will get 1/6 share, every son will get 1/6 share, and 1/6 share of father will go to the person जिसके नाम में उन्होंने will छोड़ी है. और इस बात में एक बात और देखनी जरूरी है, जो बच्चों के पास जाएगी उनके बच्चों का ऑटोमेटिक हक होगा इसके ऊपर, क्योंकि दिस बीइंग ए HUF प्रॉपर्टी, व्हेन इट इज कमिंग एज ए HUF प्रॉपर्टी विदाउट एनी you can say testate succession, then it will become an ancestral property on which the successors will have rights. That means daughter है, उसके 2 बच्चे हैं, एक son है, एक daughter है, उन दोनों बच्चों का नेचुरल हक होगा उसके 1/6 हिस्से पर, उसके पति का कोई हक नहीं होगा. प्लीज अप्रिशिएट दिस. पर अगर उन्होंने पहले ही तय कर लिया फादर की डेथ होगी तो एक HUF बन जाएगी, जिसमें मेरी फैमिली जो है, बेटे ने का भी अलग अलग HUF बन जाएंगी सबकी, एंड ऑल देयर विल बी सेपरेट HUF, तो सबकी सेपरेट HUF भी बन सकती है. ये प्रॉपर एग्रीमेंट डेथ से पहले करेंगे तो काम बन सकता है. वी टेक द सेकंड क्वेश्चन, अनलेस Akhilesh, you want to supplement anything, or Ananya?
No, sir. I think completely satisfied.
Number 2. If a person is owner of movable property as above and other movable assets, whether he can transfer whole of HUF property to the members, co-partners of the HUF as per his wishes through will, or can transfer his share in HUF through will. ये मैंने बता दिया, अपना शेयर ही दे सकता है. What is the proper method of distribution HUF भी मैंने बता दिया, lifetime through will. Will तो lifetime में करनी पड़ेगी, नहीं तो interstate में जाएगी. In case of joint family, say comprising of self, wife, 2 sons, wife, doing business as joint family, the family owns various movable and immovable assets which are acquired from joint family funds. Income in all the members of the family, same property are in the individual names. Some are in wife's name, some are in the son's name, some are in the son's wife's name. Whether in the will, the head of the family can make division or transfer his movable, immovable assets owned by him only, or may cover all the movable, immovable assets and making an equal proportion allocation of each member through a will. देखिए बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है, और एक्चुअली ऐसे ही होता है जैसे आपने लिखा है गोयल साहब. ये कोई ध्यान ही नहीं रखता कि क्या कर रहा है आदमी. पैसा एक जगह से आता है, दूसरी जगह चला जाता है. HUF के पैसे से आपने देखो, आपने सारा बताया, सब चीज HUF के पैसे से क्रिएट हुई. आई एम अज्यूमिंग दिस. HUF का बिजनेस है, HUF का जॉइंट फैमिली बिजनेस है, उसमें से पैसा निकल के इंडिविजुअल प्रॉपर्टीज बनी, इंडिविजुअल बिजनेसेस हुए, सारे काम हुए. तो सारी प्रॉपर्टी सही मायने में देखा जाए तो ये HUF प्रॉपर्टी है. Whether it is being run as, suppose से शेयर होल्डिंग ली गई, कंपनियों के तौर पर रन किया जा रहा है, तो भी एवरीथिंग इज एन HUF प्रॉपर्टी. अगर आप इसे अवॉइड करना चाहते हैं तो you can always borrow money from HUF, or the Karta by way of a written document can allocate a portion of the property to one of the children की हम अलग से आपको अभी दे रहे हैं, and it will have nothing to do with the family, it will become your own. जैसा टाइम टू टाइम कई बार फैमिली वाले डिवीजन कर देते हैं कि भाई बाकी फैमिली के पे आपका कोई नहीं रहेगा, आप अलग हो जाओ, ये पैसे लो, ये अलग, आप जानो, आपका काम जाना है. तो देन नेचुरली बाकी फैमिली मेंबर्स का उस एसेट से कोई मतलब नहीं, और उसकी एसेट को फैमिली मेंबर से मतलब नहीं. तो ये लाइफ टाइम में करना पड़े. पर अगर जैसा हॉच पॉच क्रिएट हो गया तो देखिए खाली हेड ऑफ द फैमिली के विल करने से कुछ नहीं होगा. बच्चों में बहुत भयंकर झगड़ा होने वाला है इसमें, क्योंकि जो बच्चों की वाइफ के नाम में, मान लिया चिल्ड्रन, उनके सन, दो सन है, उनकी वाइफ के नाम में है, वाइफ कहेंगे ये तो मेरा स्त्री धन है, पिताजी का क्या लेना देना, उनका क्या हक है इसे बांटने का. तो ये सारी बात इसीलिए हमने बताया कि फैमिली में जब काम किया जाता है उसे हर स्टेज पर प्लान करना है, और अगर ऐसी स्टेज आ गई तो इसको बहुत डिस्क्रीटली मैनेज करना है. जो चीज कोशिश करें उसी तरह से डिवाइड करें कि जो चीज जिसके नाम में है आपके डिवीजन में, कोशिश करके उसी के नाम में चली जाए तो ज्यादा अच्छा है. नहीं तो उन लोगों की कंसेंट लेकर अप्रोप्रिएट कंसेंट लेकर फैमिली का डिवीजन किया जाए, और फैमिली का डिवीजन आगे से प्लान कर लिया जाए, चाहे डिवीजन करो या नहीं करो. There could be agreement among family members how it is going to really happen. ये सब में इक्वल प्रोपोर्शन एलोकेट करना इज नॉट ए गुड आइडिया. मान लिया आपने मकान को भी इक्वली बांट दिया सब में, दुकान को भी इक्वली बांट दिया सब में, तो झगड़ा ही झगड़ा होगा आपके पीछे बाद में जाने के बाद. एक दूसरे का सर जरूर फोड़ेंगे, कुछ नहीं करेंगे ढंग से. बट दे विल ऑलवेज बी मेकिंग एडवोकेट्स रिचर, दैट्स ऑल. एंड कोर्ट फी में और एडवोकेट्स में सारा पैसा चला जाएगा. अखिलेश जी ठीक कह रहा हूँ, गलत कह रहा हूँ?
Absolutely right, sir.
So in case he wants to give one member a particular amount as a proportionate share, can he write the asset already in his name, will pass on to him, and can give balance other assets, or he should restrict only the properties that is movable, immovable in his name. देखिए प्लान करना पड़ेगा, मैंने बताया ये प्लानिंग करके, और बाकी जो जितने भी आपके बालिग मेंबर्स हैं, अगर आप मान लें सपोज कोई इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं फैमिली की, तो देन डेफिनेटली बाकियों का नो ऑब्जेक्शन ले लेना चाहिए, खाली कर्ता का डिसाइड करने से नहीं होगा. लेकिन अगर आप लिक्विड एसेट किसी को एलोकेट कर रहे हैं तो फादर की डिक्लेरेशन ही काफी रहेगी. आई थिंक हिज डिक्लेरेशन इटसेल्फ इज एनफ, अनलेस ही इज गिविंग टू मच डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट. फैमिली में एल्जेब्रा नहीं होता, एचयूएफ में तो बिल्कुल नहीं होता कि सबको बराबर बराबर देना है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. फादर की मर्जी है किसको कितना दिया जाए. और खासतौर पर जब बच्चों के नाम से आपने खरीद लिया तो देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड बेनामी लॉ आल्सो. तो बेनामी लॉ के हिसाब से जो चीज जिसकी है उसी की है, जिसके नाम में है. तो सारी चीजों को ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा, खाली सक्सेशन लॉ को ध्यान में नहीं रखना है. तो सोर्स क्या है, क्या उसका सोर्स ऑफ सोर्स है, आपने इनकम टैक्स में क्या डिक्लेरेशन की, कहां से आया, किसके पैसे से आया, ये सारी चीजें महत्वपूर्ण है. क्योंकि जो भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन आपकी क्रिएट हुई है दैट में डिटरमिन द ओनरशिप ऑफ फ्यूचर. और जरूरी नहीं है कि आप आदमी को किसी को अलग करें, जब भी अलग करना है आप पहले भी प्लान कर सकते हैं, और पार्टली भी दे सकते हैं. मान ले सपोज फैमिली प्रॉपर्टी सारी एक साथ रहती हैं, आपने कहा भी 10 करोड़ रुपए मैंने अखिलेश को दे दिए, बेटा अखिलेश जाओ अपना बिजनेस सेटअप करो, फैमिली का कुछ अभी लेना देना नहीं, यू आर पार्ट ऑफ द फैमिली, आपको घर से नहीं निकाल रहे हैं, बाकी फैमिली की एसेट में भी आपका हिस्सा रहेगा, पर 10 करोड़ आपको अलग से दे रहे हैं फैमिली की तरफ से. फैमिली में 1000 करोड़ की एसेट, आपको 10 करोड़ दे दिया, आप बिजनेस करो अपना, जो मर्जी करो, स्टार्टअप शुरू करो, आप जो मर्जी करो, आपको दे दिया. तो उसमें फैमिली ने दे दिया, उसको एलोकेट कर दिया, वो हिस्सा बांटा नहीं गया, मतलब वो पर्सनल हो गया अखिलेश जी का उसके बाद से. प्लीज अप्रिशिएट अगर कर्ता ने उसे उस तरह से एलोकेट कर दिया तो. क्योंकि जैसे मान लिया बेटी की शादी करते हैं, उसमें 5 करोड़ 10 करोड़ रुपए लगा देते हैं, 20 करोड़ 50 करोड़ भी लगा देते हैं लोग, तो वो फैमिली के पैसे से खर्च हो जाता है, उसे तो कोई ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं कर सकता. दिस समथिंग लाइक दैट ओनली. मान लिया बेटे की एजुकेशन के लिए, अनन्या को पढ़ने के लिए भेजना, मान लिया अमेरिका, उसके ऊपर 5 करोड़ रुपए खर्च होने, उसके 3 साल में वहां पढ़ेंगी, तो उसका खर्चा कर दिया फैमिली ने, कर दिया तो कर दिया. तो उसमें उसकी कोई अकाउंटिंग नहीं है फैमिली में कि भी 5 करोड़ तो इसके ऊपर खर्चे थे, तो अब तो इसके 25 करोड़ में से 5 करोड़ कम करो, बाकी 20 करोड़ जो है 20 करोड़ ही दो अगर 25 करोड़ इसके हिस्से में आ रहे हैं. दैट इज फॉर द हेड ऑफ द फैमिली टू डिसाइड विद द फैमिली कंसेंट. बट कानून जो है वो हम बता चुके हैं कि आप सिर्फ अपना हिस्सा बांट सकते हो, बाकियों का हिस्सा आप नहीं बांट सकते. पर ड्यूरिंग लाइफ टाइम आप बहुत कुछ कर सकते हो. ड्यूरिंग लाइफ टाइम एज करता यू हैव फुल अथॉरिटी ऑन द एचयूएफ, एक्सेप्ट व्हेन यू मिसयूज द फैमिली मनी. वो बहुत सारे केस लॉज हैं. सपोज यू वांट टू गिव टू ए लेडी आउटसाइड द फैमिली, यू आर मिसयूजिंग, यू हैव ए सेकंड वाइफ, और यू हैव अल्ट्रा मैरिज रिलेशनशिप, मैरिज के बाहर के आपके रिलेशनशिप, उसमें पैसे खर्चते हो आप, या कोई इलेजिटिमेट चाइल्ड है उसके ऊपर देते हो, देन ऑफ कोर्स फैमिली कैन ऑब्जेक्ट, डेफिनेटली कैन ऑब्जेक्ट. फिर उसके लिए एचयूएफ प्रॉपर्टी का आप खर्च नहीं कर सकते. नेक्स्ट क्या है जी?
So the fourth one is, at the time of making will, should we mention the detail of the property owned and its distribution, or maybe write present value on the date of will, so that at the time of making a will, a fair, equal or proportionate share can be distributed to each person. He
लेकिन
may
मैंने अभी
write that.
बताया कि फेयर कभी भी ना, इक्वल शेयर कभी फेयर नहीं होता लाइफ में. जस्टिस कृष्णा अय्यर ने बड़े फेमस जजमेंट में कहा है, यू कांट ट्रीट अनइक्वल्स एज इक्वल्स. व्हेन यू ट्रीट अनइक्वल्स एज इक्वल्स, दैट इज द बिगेस्ट इनइक्वालिटी यू मे डू. यू हैव टू एक्चुअली प्लान इट प्रॉपर्ली. इक्वल बांटना तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं, किसी के लिए पॉसिबल नहीं है, कोई करता भी नहीं, ना कर सकता है, चाहे तो भी नहीं कर सकता है. तो इसलिए इक्वालिटी से नहीं होगा. लेकिन आप जो है ना, आप, और ये उसमें वैल्यू तो चेंज होती है रोज. आप विल आज बनाएंगे, कल फिर चेंज हो जाएंगे वैल्यू, परसों फिर चेंज हो जाएंगे. इसलिए वैल्यू नहीं, आप डिस्क्रिप्शन दीजिए प्रॉपर्टीज का, और कौन सी प्रॉपर्टी किसको जानी है वो डिसाइड करिए, और एल्जेब्रा से मत डिसाइड करिए। एल्जेब्रा से डिसाइड करें तो होगा नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगा। आप नीड देखिए बच्चों की, फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी किसको क्या क्या ज्यादा जरूरत है, किसको कम जरूरत है, कौन प्रेगमेटिक है कौन नहीं है, बिजनेस कौन चला सकता है कौन नहीं चला सकता है, ये भी हम देख रहे थे फैमिली बिजनेस। ये सारी चीजें देख के करना पड़ेगा। ऐसे अगर करेंगे तो फिर ये तो उजड़ वाला काम हो जाएगा, आप बिजनेस आपका बर्बाद हो जाएगा, आप सबको बराबर बराबर बांट जाएंगे तो नहीं चलने वाला है जी। किसी को हो सकता है आप मूवेबल एसेट दें, किसी को इमूवेबल एसेट दें, और तीसरे को आप बिजनेस दें, ऐसा पॉसिबल है। प्लीज गो फर्दर, एनी अदर क्वेश्चन प्लीज।
Yes, sir. We have few more queries in our comment box. Shall I share?
हाँ बोलिए बोलिए प्लीज, क्वेश्चन तो नहीं छोड़ेंगे जी प्लीज, क्वेश्चन तो अखिलेश ले ही लेना।
Yes, of course. And sir, I think in the comment section we have already covered one question, which was the joint will, and the remaining one is also already answered. He already commented that his answer is clear. Thanks. So there are only two questions in the comment box.
और कुछ है देखिए माविया जी, एनीथिंग एल्स? ये है हाउ टू ट्रांसफर एसेट्स ऑफ एचयूएफ।
Sir, it is already answered.
ये तो हो ही गया, अच्छे से कर दिया है तो।
Yeah, he is already answered. Thank you.
तो काफी डिटेल में कर दिया जी।
One was there in the initial. That was the joint will, which is already taken.
दिस आल्सो हैज बीन डन, ये एसपी
Gaurav,
गोयल सर का तय कर लिया है।
yeah.
Yes, sir. That's all the questions we have.
No, I think through you, I want to communicate to the participants that they can write to us without any difficulty. And Ananya ji will share now all her presentations with you. You can share the presentations with the participants,
Yes,
or
sir.
maybe what we can do is we will actually upload it on our website of Inmax Law offices, and we'll send you the link. Anybody who wants to actually download, I think अनन्या ये ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा, आपने
Yes, sir.
वेबसाइट पर मंडे को अजय से कह के इसे अपलोड करा दीजिए, एंड सेंड द लिंक टू माविया जी, सो एनीबडी कैन रियली डाउनलोड।
Yes, sir. That is fine.
ठीक है ना? और माविया जी, ये जो 3 दिन का हमारा प्रेजेंटेशन है, इसका आपका यूट्यूब जो है, इसका यूट्यूब भी आप अगर हमें देंगे तो वो भी हम यूट्यूब में उसके साथ हम अपनी वेबसाइट पर भी लिंक दे देंगे उसका, सो दैट पीपल कैन गो देयर। एंड
Okay,
आई
sir.
विल रिक्वेस्ट माविया जी, इफ यू कैन एक्चुअली, जिसमें बीच में जैसे कुछ डिस्टर्बेंस है, बातें हैं, कुछ हैं, वो सब आप उसमें अगर यूट्यूब वाले कनेक्शन को खोल के उसे ठीक करा देंगे, थोड़ा सा उसमें एडिटिंग कर देंगे, तो इट विल रियली कम आउट वेरी वेल।
Yes, sir. I'll try to do this.
ठीक है जी। तो बाकी हमारा बिजनेस सक्सेशन काफी हद तक हो गया है, हालांकि अभी 50-60 स्लाइड और भी हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मोटी मोटी बात 90% हमने कवर कर ली बिजनेस सक्सेशन को। बाकी तो देखिए एक प्रोसेस है, बहुत बड़ा प्रोसेस है, और नॉर्मली बिजनेस सक्सेशन रिक्वायर 3 to 4 hours मिनिमम, एंड समटाइम्स मे बी मच मोर। एक एक क्लाइंट के साथ हमें कई कई घंटे उनको बात समझे, उनकी समझनी पड़ती है, उन्हें समझानी पड़ती है, तब कहीं जाके होता है। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर गिविंग अस दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी। थैंक्स टू मिस्टर राज चावला, thanks to Akhilesh and Ananya, my team members, who have supported me all this. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, sir, for your such knowledgeable presentations and deliberations in all those 3 sessions. Thank you, our team member Ananya ma'am, Akhilesh ji, Chavi ma'am, and Astha ma'am. Thank you so much, and thank you all the viewers for attending this webinar.
Thank you so much. Huh?
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskar.